across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots to discuss on the Evening Exchange. It's just gone 7 o'clock, and whatever you want to talk about, whether it's about Harry and Meghan, whether it's about this pamphlet, Understanding Behaviours and Expectations in the UK, and what the Prime Minister has been saying about it. Disgraceful comments, if you ask me. Also, is Nigel Farage using Christianity to stir anti-Muslim feeling? That is the view of the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, the bearded lefty. Not happy with him. We'll debate all that in a second. We'll talk as well about the infected blood scandal and the fact that people who've been through absolute hell with infected blood their whole lives promised compensation. That's taken forever. Now they've been overpaid and asked to give the money back. We'll speak to a victim of that a little bit later on in the programme. Horrendous. These people have been through a decades-long scandal, finally acknowledged, then a compensation scheme for them for ruined lives, many people dying before they get the money, and then their families are asked for it back. Just dreadful. Loads to discuss this evening. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. We can talk as well about the AI GP's receptionist who doesn't understand Yorkshire accents. Lots to discuss. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter or at CardwellPeter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. We'll play out as many of those as we can between now and 10. Or a WhatsApp text message, or just give me a ring on 0344 499 1000 if you had GCSE results today, or someone in your family or your life who did. I hope they went well. Becca, I'm asking you to tell me how your daughter Jessica got on. Maybe you would text that in and we can let people know, because there's a lot of people asking about Jessica, and I hope she did very, very well, and I hope she's very happy with what she has received. Loads to discuss, as I say, between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, let's go through the day and give you an idea of what has been happening. There was a Reform UK press conference this morning. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, about GCSEs. That was the results that came out today. Ciala Braverman, who's the education spokeswoman for Reform UK, was talking about this, and she has some pretty stringent and strident views on it. This is what she said.
Don't get ripped off by the great university scam. Don't waste your time studying for a pointless degree at a mediocre university. If you want to work hard, if you want to move forward, earn a wage and have opportunities in your life, take up and look for apprentices.
So that is Ciala Braverman talking earlier today. I wonder what people think about that. Also, Andy Burnham was in a rubbish tip today, exactly a month on from from becoming Prime Minister. He is someone who wanted to talk about illegal wasting and waste and fly tipping and all that kind of stuff. Instead, the very first question that he was asked was about Harry and Meghan. He was also asked about this publication, the Home Office publication, Understanding Behaviours and Expectations in the UK. If you're watching Kevin's show, or indeed mine, you'll find out last night, you would have found out how much and what basic asylum seeker information needs to be given about gender equality, domestic abuse, sex and consent, respect in public. Absolutely basic stuff. So what did the Prime Minister say about that? Let's find out.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country, and we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
And of course the huge story in the Telegraph and in the Sun last night about Harry and Meghan coming back to these shores. Let's just remind ourselves what Harry said not that long ago, actually about a year ago, about how he felt about England, his homeland.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK, of course I do. And I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
Except he will, and he's changed his mind and is coming back, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the programme. Would you welcome Harry and Meghan back to our shores, or do you just think, just sit down and shut up, both of you? We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But something I spotted that I wanted to talk about today is the former Archbishop of Canterbury, who has accused Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, about using Christianity to stir up anti-Muslim feeling. This is the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, accusing Nigel Farage of misusing the UK's Christianity to channel anti-Muslim feeling. He was Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, for 10 years until 2012. He said there was inevitable scepticism these days about some claims to religious conviction. He gave an interview to the New Humanist magazine and said, "I suspect really that Farage and others want to channel anti-Muslim feeling, and it helps we're a Christian society to fling back. It gives a sort of ballast." Ironically, for someone like Nigel Farage, it's about trying to find a presentational strategy that allows him to be taken seriously outside England. He's often not here after all. If we're looking for what animates Christian nationalism, I think it's in part the very simple search for someone to blame. Nigel Farage at Easter earlier this year posted online, "The Christian values in which our country are built are something to be proud of." In 2024, he prompted criticism after suggesting there were a growing number of young people in this country who do not subscribe to British values, in fact loathe much of what we stand for. He confirmed he was referring to Muslims. And he criticised earlier this year the Trafalgar Square Iftar event, saying the religious fast-breaking event was an attempt to overtake, intimidate and dominate our way of life. I wonder what you think about this. 0344 499 1000. Dan Barker is with me from, he is the Vice President of Christian Fellowship for Reform. Dan, you're very welcome, as is Matthew Hulbert, who's a Lib Dem activist and also a member of Deanery Synod, who is a Christian himself. Dan is too, of course. Dan, tell me what you think about this and what you think about the former Archbishop of Canterbury's criticisms of Nigel Farage.
Well, thanks for having me on. And, well, I'll just say there's lots of personal comments in there, lots of antipathy, and he joins a long list of himself, Justin Welby, and now Sarah Mullally, who are demonstrating consistently left-wing politics, intervening in political life, in issues, in a way that I think undermines their positions and Christianity in this country.
How does it undermine their position, do you think?
Well, it shows, you know, in the roles that they hold, Archbishop of Canterbury, we should not be able to guess which side of the political spectrum they are on. And by wading into rows like this, criticising someone like Nigel Farage, who has said, "I am Christian." Keir Starmer never gets a mention. He's an atheist, godless, doesn't get attacked for that. It's not clear what Andy Burnham says is a Catholic, but not clear where he stands on that.
But I suppose the point with specifically with Nigel Farage is that he has talked about Christian values in which our country is built. If someone mentions that or doesn't mention that, I mean, I don't remember Rishi Sunak ever really talking about Hinduism, for example, whereas Nigel Farage has specifically spoken about Christian values.
Well, Rishi Sunak was overtly Hindu and he celebrated the festivals. But the point Nigel Farage makes about this is a Christian country is an objective fact. It's not an opinion or he's trying to persuade anyone. It's an objective fact. You look at our history. Anyone who studies our history, even into the recent past, sees the overwhelming influence that Christianity has had on politics, the foundation of the nation, our laws, our constitution. There is no escaping with it. Christianity is so deeply embedded into our country that even anti-Christian thought is Christian in its nature.
Matthew, what do you make of this, right?
Hi, Peter, and hi to Dan as well. Well, I agree with the former Archbishop of Canterbury. So here's a Bible verse for you. Matthew 22, 36, 40. When Jesus is asked which rule in law is the most important, he chose two: to love your God with all your heart, soul and mind, and to love your neighbour as yourself. I'd like to get Dan's view on this in just a sec, but I believe that love your neighbour is in the widest sense of that. In effect, to love every human being, whatever their faith, background, sexuality, or whatever. I think that is what Jesus told us to do. What does Dan believe is your neighbour?
Hold on a second. Has Rowan Williams shown Christian charity towards Nigel Farage?
No.
Well, he's got himself involved in a political debate, given his great experience as the Archbishop of Canterbury, and why shouldn't he be able to use his voice in that way?
Yeah, but is he loving his neighbour? Is he showing Christian compassion towards the Nigel Farage?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with people and pretending you agree with them just to be nice. He clearly fundamentally disagrees with what Nigel Farage is doing.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe now I can put to Dan, who does he believe is meant by Jesus when he refers to love your neighbour? Only white people?
Well, if we're going to start quoting scripture, I would say, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. You know, you can pick any text and use it for your argument, and many people do that. I'll go back to the fact that Rowan Williams, Sarah Mullally, Justin Welby, they wade into politics on a distinctive side. You know, I think if you looked over their shoulder in the voting booth, the tick will be going in the Green Party or maybe Labour. We shouldn't know what their politics are, and they make a mockery of the office, which is nearly 1,000 years old. The Archbishop of Canterbury. They're undermining the church. They're undermining Christianity, and you know, church and state should be completely separate.
But what is Nigel Farage doing? Nigel Farage is doing exactly what you've just said of them, but just on the other side of politics.
He's not a church leader, though, Matthew, is he? He's not a church leader, though.
No, and in which case, he shouldn't seek to proclaim what or what not our country is, because I'm
well,
a Christian.
You've done that in this conversation, as has Dan, as have I, and I think we are talking about, and that's what we do in this show all the time, we talk about what our country is and what our country's values are, because, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. You said just a second ago that the Archbishop of Canterbury, or the former Archbishop of Canterbury, is expressing his opinion, which he's allowed to do. Nigel Farage is doing that too. You just happen to disagree with him, Matthew.
Yeah, well, I do. That's fair enough. But what I would say is that the Jesus that I very strongly believe in with all my heart is and was and is all about love, compassion and justice. What does Reform UK have to do with any of that?
Do you want to answer that, Dan?
Well, I think it's a non-question. I mean, to say that we don't love our neighbour, we don't love, you know, what Reform stands for is about
what
putting British people
by our
first.
neighbour?
Just let him answer, Matthew.
Putting British people first, which includes people who have come either in this generation or from other generation from different parts of the world. You know, we are a multiracial society.
They're not,
and we have been for duration of my lifetime, which I'm in my 50s now, so it's not like it's a new thing. And the debate around immigration is a perfectly legitimate one. And to talk about loving your neighbour, loving the alien,
are they our neighbour?
As an argument for why we should have no border,
no answer.
We should have unmitigated immigration, we should have no control over it, I think is a false one.
Who do you see as our neighbour? Hold on. Who do you see as our neighbour, Dan?
Well, our neighbour is the people we live with, the people in our country. The citizens of this country are our neighbour.
Oh, so a narrow group. It's
not a narrow group. It's the vast majority of people here.
I mean, he's talking about millions of people, Matthew. He's not talking about a narrow group.
So under all of this, Reform UK gets to decide who is our neighbour.
Well, Matthew, the interpretation of the scriptures has been the case for many, many years. We have a former Archbishop of Canterbury, we have you, we have Dan. I mean, theology exists because people disagree.
Of course it does, but I've never known, I use Donald Trump as an example. He goes somewhere and holds up a Bible in front of a TV camera, and the religious right in America forgets what he said and allegedly done. I think, truthfully, I think it's a fact, done in regards to women. They forget his criminal record because he holds up a Bible.
Donald Trump doesn't have a criminal record. Dan, what is your thought on what should happen now? Should Nigel Farage respond to this, do you think?
Well, I think, let's not confuse the American right with the UK. There's no not even closely related. This is a completely different country. I think Nigel Farage has said he's a Christian.
Let him speak, Matthew.
He's a Christian, and I find it encouraging that someone who's a leader of a party, potentially a future Prime Minister, comes out and says that I'm a Christian and is not fearful of what people might think of him. Look at your own party, where, Tim Farron was forced out of the leadership role. David Campanale, a candidate for a parliamentary seat,
I know Tim
was forced
well,
out, persecuted for being
Let him
Christian.
speak, Matthew. I'll come to you in a second.
Well, hopefully I'll get to speak.
In a second, Matthew.
Persecuted for being a Christian. How liberal is that, I would ask you?
Matthew.
I know Tim Farron well, and he knows my views well, and he got himself into a real mess when he was party leader, trying to lead a socially liberal party as a social conservative. And in the end, the men in the grey suits had to go and tell him that you just can't do that. Remain in the party, remain an MP. He's a very good guy, Tim Farron. But you can't lead a socially liberal party as a social conservative. It's a nonsense.
Dan, wouldn't you argue that Jesus was a bit of a socialist? I mean, he was a person who hung out with prostitutes. He's hung out with tax collectors. He hung out with people who were rejected by the Pharisees, by many in society. Some would argue that Nigel Farage's views are closer to the Pharisees than to Jesus Christ.
Well, I think you could look at the life of Jesus in the Gospels and you could pick out both things from the left and the right. I mean, what he was radical, in terms of the kind of quiet revolution, not so quiet that he brought with the Gospels. But, to go back to, the argument about David Campanale, that he's just stood as a Christian and he was forced out by the Liberal Democrats. There's nothing, it's a shame on politics in this country. So
I'm a Christian not forced out by the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, but you're not standing for Parliament, Matthew, at this point anyway.
No.
So you've commented. Hold on a second. You've commented on Tim Farron, but you haven't commented on that other controversy. Would you like to?
Well, I only know vague bits about it, and I know that there's been a whole court thing, so I don't want to get myself in legal trouble.
You're not going to get yourself... I'll keep you on the right side of the law, Matthew.
Okay.
You must have an opinion on the fact that someone who's a professed Christian was essentially told, don't stand for the Liberal Democrats because of your Christian faith. That was part of it. That is what he contended.
Yeah, well, what I would allege, because again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but what I would allege, and from what I've read, and I'm not saying this is a reason for him to have been barred from standing for the party for Parliament, but again, I feel a bit like Tim Farron. His views were socially conservative, and we're a socially liberal party. Why would you seek to represent in Parliament a socially liberal party as a social conservative? Why would you want to do that?
Well, every party's a coalition, and surely the Liberal Democrats, being liberal, could accommodate people of varying views.
Well, we're not libertarian. We're a social liberal party, and you'd surely expect that those wanting to represent it would be socially liberal.
Well, they made Tim Farron the leader of the party, so clearly he got through all of that.
Not very long, was he?
Well, he was still elected leader of the Liberal Democrats. Doesn't matter for how long, he was elected leader of the Liberal Democrats, so I'm afraid that slightly defeats your argument. Right, final points from you both. Dan, first of all.
So, I mean, I would say this sort of allegation that, that the Christian nationalism in the UK is on the rise, I think it's a load of rubbish. I mean, what we're seeing is an increase in church going, particularly among Gen Z. I think it's got nothing to do with politics. I think that leaders like Rowan Williams and others, Sarah Mullally, should be, celebrating this, that there is a rediscovery of our Christian heritage, our Christian faith. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for all religions because it's only under the auspices of the Christian faith that you can have pluralistic society where you can have Hindu, Muslim faiths flourishing and being free to express themselves. I think to attack Christianity as a negative force baffles me.
Matthew, final word from you.
I'm not attacking Christianity. I am a Christian. I just happen to believe that my Christianity is very different to yours. And I guess that's okay because, God is big, strong and old enough and all the rest of it to manage our human differences of opinion. But my Christianity is all about love and compassion and forgiveness. And the church that I go to, which no doubt your lot would consider a woke church, well, if it is, I'm proud of that. It's absolutely inclusive of everyone, including LGBT plus communities. And that is the reason why I go to it. There's other very conservative churches, at which, Dan, I'm sure you'd be warmly welcomed.
I hope everyone's sitting down as they listen to the fact that Matthew Hulbert goes to a woke church. That is something that has shocked us all this evening. Listen, thank you both very much indeed. Dan Barker there, Vice President of the Christian Fellowship for Reform, and Matthew Hulbert, Liberal Democrat activist and member of the Deanery Synod, both Christians themselves. Gary says, does that include love those who follow a faith that wants to kill non-believers? Sarah says, Luke 10:19 in the Bible, where Jesus tells his disciples he has given them the power to walk on snakes and beat the enemy. That's Sarah in Weymouth there. One person says we should have asked Matthew how many neighbours he thinks we should allow into this country. Should there be a limit? Who's going to fit the bill? His party doesn't love his Jewish neighbours. There certainly have been problems with anti-Semitism in the Liberal Democrats, as there have been in many other parties, not least the Greens, and Reform too as well. Dawn says, in an episode of Westminster, Hacker had to recommend a candidate for an archbishop position. Sir Humphrey said of one candidate, you can't choose him, he believes in God. David in the Cotswolds says, is this where we are now? Habakkuk 1 verse 3 slavery. Why, Lord, do you make me look at injustice? We are being invaded by the third world and we're releasing convicts early. This is Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, says David. Jason simply says Matthew is very childish. Natasha says, well, I'll read that out in a second. Joanna in Salisbury says, Matthew uses bits that suit him. The UK's values and laws were based on Christianity for centuries. Jesus said, do not become unevenly yoked with the unbeliever, says Joanna. I'm learning a lot about Bible verses this evening. And Penny says, having been brought up in a convent, as I'm a total atheist. Love thy neighbour. We have some dreadful neighbours who've we've really helped in the past, but no good deed goes unpunished, and jealousy is a terrible trait. Natasha's also been in touch and says, Harry saying he'd like to come back to the UK despite some of the things it's done. What a spiteful little dig about the UK when he and Meghan have said the most awful things. They're going to cause trouble just when the king is sick, like they did to the late Queen. What a nasty, selfish pair, says Natasha. Lots more to discuss on all of that, and do get your calls in, get your voice notes in, get your texts in, 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss. We'll go to the debate desk in a second. The triumphant return of Viggo Turling he will come. He's a research associate at the Adam Smith Institute, and Ebzak Ntade, the man who saved us on Friday night when we needed a guest quickly and very kindly came directly from the airport to talk about the dreadful suicide of Jason Arde, which we talked about. Ebzak Ntade, a political commentator, will be with us. I'd love to hear your views too. Stay with us.
You doom-mongers, you're just killjoys, aren't you?
That's just silly, isn't it? I'm not a doom-monger. I'm a fact-monger.
Yeah? Well, why can't people just enjoy the summer?
And 1,000 people are dead. And 20 people have lost their homes.
No, well, that's bad.
And
I agree with that.
Now I'm going to stretch me on breaking
But your facts, you can't say 1,000 people have died because of climate change. That's right.
Well,
you laugh in a condescending way. You're making yourself look ridiculous.
Yeah,
Don't blame me.
This is not a discussion. This is just a rant.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of people getting in touch about the debate we have just had. Gary says, you must get tired of having liberal lefties on trying to convince the British public they are Christians. Wasn't Jesus a socialist? I've always thought so. Mark in Bournemouth says, as a Presbyterian, I can tell you Christian socialism is an unbiblical oxymoron, and Rowan Williams is a druid and has no inkling of the gospel. Joe in Shrewsbury says, the former Archbishop of Canterbury needs to recognise that Christianity is being eroded and destroyed rapidly by Islam. For God's sake, our churches are being burned to the ground, our religion is being overrun and slowly eradicated by Islam. Can you love your neighbour if your neighbour seeks only to harm or kill you? Why should your women and children be at risk of rape and sexual assault in the name of loving thy neighbour? Your guest, Matthew, is everything that is wrong with this country and our Christian religion. Dave says, all I will say is I'm so glad I'm an atheist. Lorraine in Manchester says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Lorraine. The only place Harry and Meghan should be living is in the Tower of London. I regard them as traitors. They have disrespected everyone in the UK with their truth and have been caught out selling several mistruths. They have attacked the monarchy. Unfortunately, King Charles seems weak, allowing them to dictate the narrative. We can only hope that William and Catherine have the strength to deal with them appropriately, stripping them of their titles and removing them from the line of succession. Gary in Larne says, I'm not religious. I don't even believe in God, but I subscribe to Christian values. That is the basis of our island. Most of these church people are lefty Green Party members, says Gary. Thank you for that. Well, let's go to the debate desk on this topic. Viggo Turling is with me. Great to see you back, Viggo. You well?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Excellent. And he is, of course, Research Associate at the Adam Smith Institute. And I'm sure, like all Swedes celebrating this week, that it is the 50th anniversary of Dancing Queen. I know.
I thought there was something really important.
It is really important. Dancing Queen not really important, you know. Elzak Insade, political commentator, now celebrating the 50th anniversary of Dancing Queen as well. Right then, less about Dancing Queen, more about Nigel Farage and whether he's stirring up anti-Muslim feeling, according to Rowan Williams. What do you make of this row, Viggo? We've just had quite a vigorous debate about it. I just wonder what you think about it.
Yeah, look, I'll state my interest. I am an atheist, and I wish we'd stick to secular arguments more often. But I would say, I don't want to make assumptions about Nigel Farage's psyche, what his motivations are, but I would say that...
I mean, he has said the Christian values on which our country is built are something to be proud of.
Yeah, and no, I wholeheartedly agree. I would describe myself as a cultural Christian. I agree with that. But what I would say is I don't want to make assumptions about his motivations. I don't want to make assumptions as to whether he's tapping into Christian nationalism as an electoral tool. So, but what I would say is that Tommy Robinson is a man who I think has acted in ways that are contrary to some Christian values in the past. And I do find it slightly ironic when he tries to tap into that Christian sentiment sometimes.
Ebbs, what do you think?
I think if there's a bandwagon to jump on, Nigel Farage will do it quite convincingly. I mean, for Rowan Williams to be in the position that he's in, or that he was in as Archbishop of Canterbury back in 2012 and before that, if he has spotted it, if he can spot like an anti-Muslim feeling and he's dictating that and saying that, then there must be an element of truth to it.
I mean, the fact that I don't think Nigel Farage is anti-Muslim. I mean, Zia Youssef is a Muslim and is his Home Affairs spokesman, for example. I mean, I love it when people say, oh, Nigel Farage is anti-gay, for example. I mean, the chairman of Reform UK was David Bull, who is an openly gay man. Yeah. But he has said the religious fast-breaking event, the Iftar in London and Trafalgar Square, previously, he said earlier this year, he said it was an attempt to overtake, intimidate and dominate our way of life. He also said that a growing number of young people in this country do not subscribe to British values, in fact loathe much of what we stand for, and he confirmed he was referring to Muslims. But it's a slightly more complicated picture, isn't it, Ebbs?
Yeah, it is. It is much more complicated than that. Maybe saying that he's stirring anti-Muslim feeling. What I think he is doing, which Nigel Farage always subtly does, is to push an agenda that isn't necessarily as straightforward as you might think. Because I think for a lot of people, anything anti-immigration, he won't put it in like a far-right way. He won't state it like that, but he'll put it in a more measured way that still gets the point across, because he's very intelligent, Nigel Farage, like him or loathe him. But there would be an agenda there that pushes a certain degree of anti-Muslim feeling to make sure that, in his mind, in what he's saying, we're upholding British values in inverted commas.
Do you agree with that, Viggo?
Yeah, to an extent. What I meant by my first answer is that it's obvious that Farage is tapping into some sort of Christian nationalist sentiment in the country. However, what Rowan Williams explicitly said was he did not think Farage tapped as much into the theological questions as he does into the broader sentiment. And so while I agree, I still hold by my first answer. I don't want to make assumptions about his faith, about how deeply he thinks about the theology, because no one can answer that but Farage.
Sean in Norway says, why are the leaders of religions given any sort of special treatment and credibility? They have no expertise in anything other than the fairy tale book clubs they preside over. Tell us what you really think, Sean. Just because someone is called reverend, rabbi, imam, etc., it doesn't mean their views are any better than someone who believes in Santa Claus or Loch Ness monsters. We should be ridiculing all religions for the ridiculous immoral myths they are, not treating their worldview as anything other than a made-up story, says Sean in Norway. What do you think of that, Ebbs?
No, I think that's too extreme. You know, whether you believe in religion or not, I'm not Muslim, but I very much respect the Islamic faith. I'm not Jewish, and the same applies. So you can respect someone being atheist, you can respect someone being religious, and you can hold your own views and be proud of that. But I wouldn't say shoot down someone because they're religious and then discard their feelings and value. When someone's been an Archbishop of Canterbury, whether you're Christian or not, this person who was Archbishop is someone of importance.
He has a right to an opinion, doesn't he?
Absolutely, no. Absolutely, and he's made his judgment on Farage's faith, and he has a right to make that judgment. I, however, don't think. I personally won't follow him in making a judgment on Farage's faith because, to be honest, I have no idea what Farage thinks inside of his head.
What do you think about what Rowan Williams has said? What do you think about how Nigel Farage should respond, if at all? 0344 499 1000. I think it might be time, as it sometimes is, especially on the debate desk, for a crap Cardi P joke. Would you like a crap Cardi P joke? Like a crap Cardi P joke?
OK. I know how low these go.
An imam, a priest and a rabbit walk into a blood donation clinic, and the rabbit says, "I think I'm a typo." Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephen Millings in Belfast says the Archbishop should keep his nose out of politics if he wishes Farage to stay out of religion. That's a really interesting one, Stephen. I know you haven't been too well recently, and I just wish you very, very well, and I will reply to your email from the other day. Amanda says, I wonder how long it will be before the do-gooders suggest women and girls dress more modestly for their safety from attack by illegal immigrants. Dave says, I'm sure it will be a great show, Peter, as per usual. I would like to correct the stance about all of the boat crew, not all being criminals. They've all entered the country illegally, therefore all instant criminals. Case closed. And Tony says, I can't believe Andy Burnham didn't have a high-vis vest on at the tip. These politicians certainly do a lot of the time. Lots of people getting in touch about Harry and Meghan. We won't be doing it wall to wall, but we'll do it a bit on the debate desk. We'll do it a little bit later on with Daniel Britton talking about the constitutional stuff. It's been done a lot today, of course, and there are people contacting me saying, oh, I can't take more of this. We'll talk about it just a little bit now and a little bit later on, but we're not going to do the whole show on it. Penny says, shock horror, the gruesome twosome are returning. I loathe them. What they've done to the royals is unforgivable. They're here for the money to pay for his failed court case, sponging off the king or taxpayer. I can't believe they have the brass neck to show their faces. Private citizens, when have they ever sought privacy? I feel sorry for the two kids who will have their backs to the camera in the school photo. A rough ride when William is king, who will quite rightly, in my opinion, never forgive them, especially Harry. Camilla got Meghan's measure in 15 minutes, apparently. Surprised it took that long. Massive problems ahead. I like Charles, but he's weak and will risk losing his family for them. Meghan had it all planned and Harry fell for it. Well, let's hear from the man himself, because in an ITV interview, Harry had talked about this allegation in the Oprah interview. He says he actually didn't call the royal family racist. Let's have a look at this.
In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
No, we didn't. Well, the British press said that.
Right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they were racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
there was concern about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
Right.
So again, going back to the difference between what my understanding is, because of my own experience, the difference between racism and unconscious bias, the two things are different. But once it's been acknowledged or pointed out to you as an individual or as an institution that you have unconscious bias, you therefore have an opportunity to learn and grow from that in order so that you are part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Otherwise, unconscious bias then moves into the category of racism.
It just sounds like therapy nonsense, to be brutally frank. I mean, therapists can be very, very good. I've gone through therapy, but that just sounded like woo-woo nonsense. Let's hear about him talking about a good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up to the BBC about a year ago as well.
This all was initiated under a previous government. And there is now a new government. I have had it described to me, once people knew about the facts, that this is an good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up, and that's what it feels like.
Well, there we are. We know the security aspect of things is something he's talked about an awful lot. Mick has said Harry and Meghan see an opportunity. The King is ill, William and Kate are preparing to reign, so it's an ideal time to disrupt and destroy. There are no good intentions, and the children will be used to manipulate. Interesting. There, let's hear. We've had a vigorous debate. Let's have more vigour with Viggo. What do you make of this?
To quote Her Majesty, recollections may differ.
May vary.
Look, yeah, may vary, sorry.
Your recollection of recollections may vary, varied there.
Yeah, indeed. But what I would say is the worldwide privacy tour is finally coming home to dock.
The worldwide privacy tour.
If Harry and Meghan are returning in some sort of semi-permanent way, I hope they don't cause more disruption than they already have. I hope that they don't cost the taxpayers any money, and I hope they don't return as working royals, because for the damage they've done, as we just saw in that first clip, they don't deserve to.
Abs?
All I can say on this one is that their return is going to cause disruption, like it or not. I don't think. What I hope for them is that if they are plotting to come back, if they are coming back and they're coming back full time, that they don't do any further interviews. They stay quite quiet. And they keep their presence low, because that's
not going to happen, Abs.
No, hang on. But that's what they said they wanted.
Yes.
They wanted a low profile. They didn't want to be overexposed. So by coming back here, it is literally like running back to the fire. But
and also a country which Meghan said drove her away because it was racist. Presumably she still thinks the same thing.
Possibly. I'm not in her head, but that's maybe what she still thinks. But there's obviously... what I maybe would like to know, what should have been said is, the reason we're coming back is because of ... They haven't actually given a reason why they're coming back.
Yes.
So I think that is quite important.
And there's all sorts of speculations for tax reasons, that is because the King's unwell, that they want the kids to be educated here. We don't know.
No, but it would have... I think it would have helped their cause if they had said why. Just a one-liner. We're coming back because of... We want our kids to grow up in an English British society, whatever. I think that would have helped. The fact that they haven't said anything now leaves everyone speculating, doesn't really help their cause. And then I can feel the knives are going to come back out for Meghan again, because the anti-Meghan feeling is so high. And yes, I can understand why, but I think the degree to which it's been fielded against Meghan has been particularly acute.
It is quite weird, Viggo, isn't it, when you have someone who says they were on a kind of, what was it, an escape flight that he was leaving. Harry was talking about the escape flight. Meghan said this country was racist and out for her and all the rest of it. Yet they're coming back. I mean, it does seem quite weird.
It is a bit
given
weird.
Everything they've said.
It is, but also I think obviously maybe when you're emotional you say things you come to regret after.
He said them a lot of times. He's written them in a book, which he may, you know, you can be emotional when you're writing a book. I know I've written two, but you generally come back and have a look at it again and then say, right, I'll maybe tone that down a bit, or
take out a couple of words.
I mean, this is consistent. And let's say it's another clip actually, just before we get your answer, if you don't mind. This is Prince Harry talking about him being sad he wasn't able to show his children his homeland because of all the security stuff. This is from May last year on the BBC. Let's have a look at this and then get Viggo's thoughts.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK, of course I do. And I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
It's changed its tune now, Viggo.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about integrity in your beliefs just before the show started, and I think I'd forgot he said that, so thanks for showing that clip. I think that clip definitely puts into question the integrity of his beliefs. And look...
You can change your mind, though.
You can change it. You can change your mind, of course. And I think, honestly, I've thought for a long time that he probably regrets the decision he made to leave. But I just want to say, I find it absolutely astonishing. You talked about all the anti-Meghan sentiment, but I think the anti-Harry sentiment is close to or equally as strong, because I find it astonishing the mental state you must be in to air internal family disagreements so publicly as he did in that Oprah interview. I mean, who does that?
Andrew?
And
Diana?
maybe it's something
Charles?
Maybe it's a common trend in that family, actually, but I do not understand.
They've often, a lot of them have done this. A lot of them have aired their dirty laundry in public.
Exactly.
But I think, sorry to Vigo to interrupt, but I think Harry's done it in a much more forthright way that has been very anti his family. And I think that's what most of the British public can't stand, which is why he has this very negative feeling towards him, because lots of people are very unforgiving of his actions previously. So watching that, I have to admit, Vigo and I looked at each other, I was like, oh God, this was only May last year.
Yeah.
So it's only 15 months ago.
He's been pretty consistent.
So how could he say that and then 15 months later now be heading back? It's literally, he's flawed himself.
And maybe he'll change his mind after another year. Let's see what the Prime Minister has said about this, specifically on the security issue. This has been a huge case. Big row between Harry saying that his kids and his wife weren't safe in the UK, and that's part of the reason that they haven't been here for any great length of time, although we know that Charles saw Harry and Meghan and the kids recently in the last few weeks, although apparently the King wasn't told actually until Sunday that they were coming back. Let's hear what the Prime Minister said when it came to the security for the Sussexes.
Well, this is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move that they're making.
Bit of a numph up there, not my flipping problem. Let's hear what Vigo thinks about whether we should pay for their security.
Unless they're working royals, it's already been established that we don't have to. It should remain as such. They ought to, after their £100 million Netflix deal, they ought to have enough money to personally finance their security.
I'm not sure they got all that 100 million anyway. But,
no. But I can't imagine they don't have the cash to do it themselves. So
yeah, they're not down the brew, are they? Ebbs, what do you make of the security question?
Yeah, so I think with security, they, I would agree with Vigo on this one. They are non-working royals, and they have decided to take themselves out of the royal picture. So by that very stance, they have to pay for their own security.
OK. Alison's been in touch and said, I wonder if King Charles is sicker than we believe, and that is why Harry and Meghan are coming back. When William is king, he wants to strip the monarchy back and will remove titles from those that don't do royal duties and those that are negligible. Rich says Labour and Blair will be somewhere with a Harry return. Ideal to have a poster DEI and wannabe woke. D says, having met Rowan Williams, I can tell you he is a proponent of niceness and is willing to compromise the truth of the Bible in the name of ecumenism. The Church of England has tried too hard to be relevant. I don't think bishops should be involving themselves in judgments about politicians. We need bishops to be telling us about the beliefs of the Christian Church, not trying to evaluate how sincere Farage's beliefs are, says D in Chesterfield. Dawn says, I once met an elderly lady in a rent collection round. She suddenly looked into my eyes and I saw the face of an angel. On my next visit, I was told she had died. Stuart says, Ebbs, you're great, but the Islamic faith condones hitting women. Please read Book 4, verse 34. Robert says, it takes a person to make a religion, not a religion to make a person. Lynn says, Nigel Farage is doing what the Pope should do, promoting Christianity. We are a Christian country. Great show, says Lynn. Richard says, bashing Farage again and again and again still distracts from Labour traitors. Hey, Peter, I'm not bashing Farage. I'm talking about the former Archbishop of Canterbury and his comments. Stuart says, faith schools such as church ones are full of unchristian type staff members who discriminate against parents and pupils. They fear looking as though they might favour people, so they go the opposite way unless you're talking about people who are foreign or dark skinned. Stuart, not sure about that. Alan says, note that Burnham in his response to the Home Office leaflet that not once did he mention anything at all about victims of rape by illegal immigrants whose lives will be destroyed as a consequence. I'm sure Maggie Oliver would not be surprised by his reaction. Well, we will talk about this next, actually. This is something that has dominated 24 hours of discussion on this programme and on this station. Understanding behaviours and expectations in the UK. We'll get the view of Ebbs and Vigo in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk, and do get your call, your text or your tweet in 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
You doom mongers, you're just killjoys, aren't you?
That's just silly, isn't it? I'm not a doom monger. I'm a fact monger.
Yeah? Well, why can't people just enjoy the summer?
And 1,000 people are dead. And 20 people have lost their homes.
No, well, that's bad.
And
I agree with that.
Now I'm going to stretch me on breaking point.
But your facts. You can't say 1,000 people have died because of climate change. That's right.
Well,
you
that's
laugh in a condescending way. You're making yourself look ridiculous. Don't blame me.
This is not a discussion. This is just a rant.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Michael's been in touch and says Harry picked a good time to return to the UK. Nobody's wife and kids are safe now. Join the club, Harry. Thanks to Stuart, who says, give Meghan a break. She was pregnant, hormonal and protective. Whether or not a member of the royal family intended to be racist or not, it was probably a speculative, tactless comment, which old people make about babies and children anyway, which should not be made when someone is sensitive about prejudice and conscious or unconscious discrimination. Penny says, Harry's school teacher says he wasn't very bright, and now we know for sure his teacher was correct. Maybe his visa has run out, and Trump is behind him being booted out because of his drug taking. Bragging about it was his downfall, along with saying he killed 25 Taliban. Yes, thick. Another person says, what exactly is Harry suggesting he's missing? He misses the UK. What, the weather? Daryl says, was that Prince Harry doing an impression of Rachel Reeves? I love my country, I love my country. Steve says, I give Harry and Meghan 1 year if they come to the UK. Meghan is the millstone around Harry's neck. That is Steve in Manfield. And Yule in Ballymena says, it's time to give Harry and Meghan a break. This man is a war hero, and the work he has done for veterans is magnificent. One more on Harry, and then we're going to leave it. This person says, Harry will soon see there isn't money swilling around in the UK like the US that can pay him to just exist, so I would think he'll go back fairly swiftly, claiming his wife doesn't like the weather or some other cobblers. We will talk about it a little bit later on in the programme. We're going to leave it for the meantime. Instead, I want to talk about this booklet, Understanding Behaviours and Expectations in the UK. Lots of people getting in touch about that. Andy Burnham asked about it today, this Home Office booklet. This is what the Prime Minister said.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country, and we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
A pile of rubbish there on the screen, not just what Andy Burnham was talking about, but the fly tipping behind him. Let's talk about what he said about this Home Office booklet. What do you think, Vico?
I might say something now slightly contrarian to the people I work with, but I don't necessarily understand the outcry around this document. I think it's a shame that it has to exist, but if we're going to let people with different cultural norms into the country who may not understand some of our cultural practices...
like not raping women?
Yeah, like not raping women. It makes sense to have a document that outlines what's acceptable in this country.
But the fact that we have to do this, the fact that this is a guide for asylum seekers, and we've got living in the UK 1 page, getting help 1 page, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 sections on gender equality, domestic abuse, sex and consent, and respect in public related to that, wolf whistling and sexual remarks and things like that. Doesn't that speak volumes, Ebbs?
I think is it supposed to reinvent the wheel or remind people how to live a normal life
Why
in
should
this
they?
country?
I mean, doesn't it say a lot about the fact that you've got to remind people not to rape women?
Yeah,
and consent is a thing. I mean, that's horrendous.
That is horrendous because you would have thought. I don't know what's common about common sense. Maybe we're in an age now where there isn't common sense anymore, and so people need to be told to breathe in and out or remember to blink. I just think that sometimes these things are just common sense and basic human decency. I don't think it helps the cause. I'm going to disagree with Viggo on this because is it saying that asylum seekers just don't get how to be decent humans? It feels like a bit.
Well,
of
if you've got to give someone a 10-page booklet of how to be a decent human, it's not exactly a massive. It's not a massive vote of confidence in their ability to do so.
It's not, because it almost has a slant of saying, like, right, you're an asylum seeker, we're going to label you as an asylum seeker, if that's who you are, and then we don't expect anything great from you until you read this booklet, and then you can acclimatise yourself to this country.
And if you look at the sexual crimes by ethnicity and sexual crimes by nationality, that is something that supports the reason for this as well.
So is that supports having a booklet?
Well, it supports to say we need to do something serious about this. And the booklet, I mean, to be brutally honest, I'm halfway between the two of you, because I can see Viggo's point in terms of saying, well, actually, you know, where's the outrage? Because maybe this is just a reasonable thing to tell people. We should be telling every single child in school this, but they shouldn't have to be told, Viggo.
Well, yeah, what I would say, obviously, the booklet states the obvious, but I think
it's not obvious to some people.
It's not obvious to some people. It's obvious to us. I think it's a symptom of a broader issue that is, you know, illegal immigration. Of course, it reminds us of the, you know, the sentiment that exists around this issue. But I'd say this: obviously, we don't want people with these views entering the country. But we already have people with these views in the country. So what are we going to do? Not educate them?
We also have a story today about a migrant who raped a sleeping woman, an Italian. The man the rapist, has the right to remain in the UK under the European Convention on Human Rights. New furious calls to quit the treaty. Also a Rwanda-style crackdown on failed asylum seekers, which is being plotted by the Home Secretary. He said the Rwanda plan wouldn't work. There's a lot of context to this, isn't there?
There is a lot of context. But, okay, so between myself and Viggo, we might think differently on this one. But I think, obviously, the big test would be, has this just been produced, this booklet?
Last 24 hours,
So the big test would be to see if these cases continue at this rate, or whether having a booklet like this actually makes a difference. I don't know whether it would. Because I think if you're capable of doing such horrendous things as raping someone, reading a booklet's probably not going to change that.
Joe in Shrewsbury says, as a woman, I'm having to consider getting a body cam in order to walk my dog, so that if I do get molested, I have photographic evidence.
Really?
How bad is that? I mean, that's just dreadful that she's even considering that. There is a lot of fear out there of all of this, Viggo, isn't there?
There is, and
what do you make of these ideas as well about a Rwanda-style plan that is being considered by Shabana Mahmood?
I think, well, the Rwanda story, I think, is a vindication of what the Conservatives tried to do 3 years ago. I think in copying Denmark's immigration policy, they're doing an excellent thing, because Denmark has had a vast turnaround in terms of the way in which and how effective they have been in removing asylum claimants. So yeah, on the Rwanda idea, I'd say it's purely just a vindication of what the Tories tried to do 3 years ago.
Okay, let's take a slightly lighter look. It's a serious story for the people who are involved with it, certainly the people who can't be understood. But this was something that caught my eye today. Patients in Rotherham are struggling with new artificial intelligence GP receptionists because it cannot understand the Yorkshire accent, according to a health watchdog. We had a lovely message from someone. Was it last week, the week before? Very nice woman who said, Peter, can you just slow down a bit, because sometimes I struggle with your accent, which is fine. Sometimes I struggle understanding what I say, to be honest, mainly because I don't make a lot of sense. But they're struggling with a new artificial intelligence GP receptionist because it can't understand the Yorkshire accent. Some surgeries triaging patients using a nationwide AI system called Emma to avoid long wait times on the phone. Health Watch Rotherham has said some patients could not get the system to understand them, as it doesn't respond well to variations in speech, such as regional accents or speech impediments. Ebbs, what do you make of this one?
I just think we're becoming too reliant on AI when it comes to making calls. I think I've got quite a flat London accent, but even when I can't remember who I was calling, but I had to go through an automated service to give my postcode, my name, my date of birth, and the AI thing just couldn't understand me. And I was going, I couldn't be clearer if I tried. So I think, irrespective of the accent that you've got, I think we're becoming so reliant on AI that it just can't understand
so I have this
basic, clear sentences.
I have this thing on my phone where I get a lot of spam calls. So I have this thing that if you're not in the names in the phone, you've got to say who you are, and then it comes up on my screen, the person saying it.
Yes.
But it's AI or voice recognition. And there's a man from Northern Ireland called Nicholas who rang me one time, and it came up as necklace. Necklace from Northern Ireland here. So what do you make of this figure? Someone who, of course, has a very clear, it's kind of not quite RP, but very straightforward UK accent. Have you ever had trouble being understood?
I personally can't remember a time in which I've not been understood by an AI, but I this story, I think it's just an example of some of the teething issues we're going to have as we further introduce AI into our public services, into our day-to-day lives. I don't see it as an issue at all. I say bring it on. The more the merrier in terms of AI being introduced into our daily lives. But yeah, I can understand that it may have been a slight annoyance for the people using the triage service.
Maybe the GP's receptionists who are freed up could actually go and deal with the boats on the Dover coast, because you rarely get past those GP's receptionists. Very difficult to get past them.
You can beg and you can plead.
Sorry, we have no appointments. She can't come in. Listen, thank you both very much. Viggo Cherling, who is Research Associate at the Adam Smith Institute. Good to see you again. Eb Zakantade, political commentator and dasher from the airport. Much appreciated on Friday night. That was a very busy programme. Appreciate your contribution to that, and indeed to this one as well. A spokesperson told the BBC, by the way, on the Yorkshire AI thing, Emma does not make clinical decisions. She is designed and trained, not real persons, AI, to understand a wide range of accents and dialects and support 17 languages in addition to English. Where she is unable to understand or deal with a patient's request, the call is transferred to the reception team. No caller is required to continue speaking with Emma, and anyone can ask to speak to a member of staff at any time. There we are. Have you had your accent misunderstood as time goes on? I love some of the accents and all the arts and parts of the country that people ring me from. You can do that right now, 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about this infected blood scandal, compensation scandal next.
Across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell, and I'm very grateful for your company this Thursday evening. Right through until 10 o'clock, we're going to be having a big debate about lots of different issues. Lots of people want to talk about Meghan and Harry. They want to talk about this pamphlet, the Home Office pamphlet, Understanding Behaviours and Expectations in the UK, that has been given to migrants. There are people, too, who want to talk about infected blood. In fact, we're going to speak to an infected blood victim, a man called Nigel Hamilton, in a second. He has been approached because they claimed that an administrative error a year and a half after he received his compensation. They want back over £90,000, and their bereaved partners who've been asked to repay £10,000. The infected blood scandal will have a reminder of exactly what happened for people who perhaps don't know the story, but this is just absolutely awful. The Department of Health and Social Care have suspended the payment requests. Several charities and indeed the Daily Telegraph have raised the issue. It's a dreadful, dreadful story. We'll hear lots more of your thoughts as well and get your call in. We'll have plenty of calls this hour and in the next hour especially, but if you get your call in now, then we'll know to ring you back. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note or text message, as I say, on the same number, as well as the one to ring me on, which is, of course, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10. Stay with us. Paul in London says it's not obvious when a woman screams no, looks terrified and is no doubt crying. Well then, what is wrong if that is not obvious? It's unbelievable. Also, those monsters would face the death penalty if caught in the countries they come from. The government in the last have been an abomination. It is too late to fix this. Talking about the Home Office pamphlet. Alex in Cardiff says the pamphlet is just wrong, that we have to write it down. Any decent human being understands it's wrong to rape and weep and beat women. The people who do that, the pamphlets will have no meaning because they're criminals and know quite well it's wrong. But to try to make out the poor migrants don't just know our laws, it's on the TV every day, and just a lot just sit and watch TV. But the government is trying to give them an excuse, in Alex's view. Lots more thoughts coming in. One from Catherine in Cardiff as well, which is very good. A very good point, I should say. Would you please remind your guests that we women and children are the guinea pigs in the great migrant experiment? I wonder what would happen if there were men who were at risk. Very interesting to hear from that. Lots to discuss on all of this. The Prime Minister was actually asked about this booklet as well. Andy Burnham was speaking today at a rubbish tip. He's talking about fly tipping, but he was asked about the Home Office booklet. This is what the Prime Minister said.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country, and we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
The other big story, of course, revealed by The Sun last night at 10 o'clock is that Harry and Meghan are on their way back. Previously, the Duke of Sussex has said this about his country, saying that he would find it highly unlikely he would ever come back, but they're on the way.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do, and I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
We're also talking about accents this evening, and the AI receptionist who can't make out Yorkshire accents. Nat in Tel Aviv says, I briefly dated a South African And when you say right now, Peter, it sounds so much like him. I nearly jump up every time I hear you say the words. There's a whole thing about South Africans and the word now. They say now sometimes when they mean later. They say now, but mean later. I lived there for 6 months and was thoroughly confused at various times. But I suppose that's just the little quirks of living in a different country. Much more serious story, and one I was really concerned about when I read about it today, was about bereaved spouses of infected blood victims who have been told to return their compensation. Since July, 12 bereaved partners have received letters asking them to return £10,000 payments made up to 5 years ago. The government said it had paid the money by mistake. Unfortunately, you were not eligible for the bereavement lump sum and should not have received this payment. We sincerely apologise that this error was not identified at an earlier stage. If you're unfamiliar with the infected blood scandal, it was the time when so many people, thousands of people, were infected by HIV and hepatitis viruses in the infected blood scandal, considered to be the worst treatment disaster in NHS history. And how this has been dealt with, how the compensation has been dealt with, has been an absolute scandal. 30,000 people infected with HIV and hepatitis viruses between the 1970s and 1990s after being given contaminated blood transfusions and blood clotting products. More than 3,000 died, and many of them are getting on in life as well too. I want to speak to Nigel Hamilton, who is an infected blood victim. Nigel, I know you have been asked to pay back some of this money as well. Can you just tell me your story in relation to the money, first of all, and then we'll get into your wider story perhaps in a minute or two. You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate the opportunity to explain what's been going on. Clearly, you've indicated that there are different cadres of individuals, different groups, who are going to find themselves having clawback. And it comes down to a degree of inefficiency. It comes down to a degree of administrative negligence. Policies have changed. The decision to award money in my case was based on the fact that I was an infected victim. I had a liver transplant. I was infected with hepatitis B and hepatitis C, fortunately not HIV. But even those people who have hepatitis C and HIV are now having ABIS, which is the original Alliance House organisation in England, clawing back or attempting to claw back money. We have children who have died, whose parents are being requested to provide information they couldn't possibly provide. And therefore, they're likely not to get the justice that their children and themselves deserve. In my case, I had a liver transplant. I had hepatitis B, hepatitis C, as I say. And I found myself in a situation where with cancer, I needed to have the transplant to survive. I've been left with 4 aneurysms, 3 brain tumours, diabetes 1. I have to administer my own insulin. While my liver is doing well and I'm in reasonably good health, I then think that I have received closure, because back a year and a half ago, they brought me forward. It took a 2 to 3 month period, and the process was supposed to be fairly robust.
So this was the process for compensation. So how much compensation were you entitled to?
I was, well, in total, several million.
Okay. And they said they'd overpaid that. And
well, what happened initially was they told me, well done, you've fought a good battle with your health. Go now and enjoy this. Take the opportunity to spend your money.
Yes, that was completely correct, yes.
Absolutely. And then with a different nuance in policy that was being introduced, they determined that there was possibly a mistake. But they didn't tell me it was a mistake. What they said was, we believe you're entitled to more money. So can we officially reopen your claim? And I said, well, if I'm entitled to more money, yes. Now,
of course,
the regulations are enforcing change, so more money is entitled to be paid. But I had thought I had received closure, and this was something I didn't expect. And I said, well, if you're going to give me more money, of course you can open it.
Yes.
Well, can we do that properly with your passport, et cetera, et cetera? And I did. After a period of about several weeks, into a month, I was told it was going to be somewhere in the region, it was intimated to me I'd be receiving somewhere in the region of between 35 and 60,000.
Extra pounds on top of what you'd received already.
On top of what I'd received already.
Yes.
Now, I didn't contact them. They contacted me.
Yes.
I sounded most grateful, as I was. I thought, well, this is good. This is not just something I can have, but I can have this for my kids, or I can have this also for my partner, et cetera, and my brother and others in my society. I'm chairman of Hemophilia Northern Ireland. So I found myself then in a situation where there were gaps in the communication. And they came back to me and they said, we have to hold this process back for a period of time because it is with the quality assurance team. And I went back and I said, is my file under quality assurance revision, or am I locked in with a group of files that are under that process? Because the longer you take, the less you're going to get through with other people.
Yes.
And there are people who haven't. Approximately 15% of applicants in this process across the different categories have received money.
So you were saying, hold on, there are 85% of people who've applied here. You're looking into my case thinking you might give me more. I've enough to be getting on with. If you get to it, great. You get to it at some stage, but prioritise these other people. I mean, it just sounds like an utter shambles, Nigel.
Yeah, it's a chicken running around without a head in real terms. So I was then instructed not to contact the previous, or the incumbent, I thought, Claims manager who was dealing with my case, because time had gone by. We were having a meeting in Belfast, which was a community-based meeting, which IBCA would send a number of claims managers and their directors, including their chief executive, David Foley, to attend. As they had done or were going to do in Cardiff, had done in Edinburgh, had done in other cities in the UK.
So when were you told, Nigel, that you had to pay back some money then?
Okay, I was instructed that when I in advance of this Belfast engagement, I said, look, you haven't come back to me. The lady hadn't returned any calls. It was 3 months down the road, and I said, look, can we please get a resolution to this? I need some answers before I go to this Belfast meeting. And I then got I contacted the original claims manager who dealt with my original case, which took only a matter of months. And then I found myself in a situation where they were saying, well, you're not to talk. A new individual claims manager came to me and said, you're not to talk to either of the others. They're working another part of the business. I'm dealing with your claim. I'm dealing with your review. And I said, well, what do you mean review? And I said, well, we believe, he sent me the email, which was dated early 20th of May. We believe that you have made, we believe that we have made an administrative mistake or error. And if we have, you'll either get paid more money or you'll be overpaid and we'll be claiming money back from you.
Can I just take a step back here, Nigel? Right. So you're a victim of the infected blood scandal. So many parts of your life, I'm sure, are very rich and wonderful, but you've had this misery, all these horrible health conditions forced upon you through absolutely no fault of your own for years. You're told you'll be compensated, and rightly so, and you absolutely should be. There's no doubt in my mind about that. You get a good whack of cash, great, fantastic, go off and live your life. Try to maybe slightly put this behind you in some way, or just live your life in a different way rather than the fight for compensation being in your mind the whole time. Then they come back to you and say, oh, actually, we got it wrong. Oh, by the way, you owe us some money. I mean, why can these people just not get it right?
It's a very callous process. They are saying that if the Cabinet Office agreed to it and the Exchequer agreed to it, that there is a certain amount of latitude in not having to pay it back under two regulations, 80 and 81, which are effectively on welfare grounds, i.e. psychological impact, or else on financial impact.
So what has happened? What has happened with your money then? What has happened with that, or what will be happening with it?
They haven't made a decision yet, and I've had several meetings recently, within the past couple of weeks, and they said to me, I've requested that there be some form of committee set up to look into this, because we knew there were going to be a considerable number of people. I said to them it's going to go into the thousands. And they said, oh, no, there's only 5. We identified 5 in Belfast. Yet their communications director indicated at a meeting I had with other colleagues and some of their colleagues, which would be a regular meeting, a monthly meeting, that there were over 100. We know they're in excess of 300. We're now hearing about IBIS as well. So basically what at the last meeting, the legal director informed me that they had set up an ethics committee, and they had set up an overpayments committee. And I said, okay, this has been going on for me since February. Now, will you please tell me, when are we going to get this dealt with? I want closure. And they said, oh, it's much too early. It'll be quite some time.
For goodness sake. That
what
is...
about an ethics committee terms of reference? What about the people on those panels? Oh, we haven't even set that up yet. They don't care about people's psychology and how people are dealing with it and the impacts that there are.
Crazy. Absolutely.
I tell you,
yep.
It's like me being told, you're a spy. All right, I'm a spy. Great. So I go and identify myself as an agent. I become a member of a memorial committee for the dead in our community with the Cabinet Office. I become a policy unit challenger within the Department of Health in Northern Ireland, putting in the application processes for new policies from the regulations that came out and the recommendations that came out from the public inquiry. I'm a volunteer and give my time freely on the IBCA volunteer groups. And then I find myself as chairman of Hemophilia Northern Ireland. That takes up a lot of my time. So I'm not getting any freedom from this process. And what they're basically saying is, oh, you're not a spy. We've made a mistake. You're a milkman. That's how farcical it is.
It's mad. It is absolutely terrible. Nigel, keep us updated with what's going on. We'll talk more as there are developments and all of this. Please keep in touch with us. That's Nigel Hamilton there, who's an infected blood victim. This infected blood scandal is horrendous. It's going on for years. It involves thousands of people. You've people like Nigel who deserve their compensation to be settled, it to be a settled issue. A government spokesman said this issue was brought to the attention of ministers in the Department of Health and Social Care and Cabinet Office in recent days, specifically in regard to the related issue of bereaved partners who've been asked to pay £10,000 payouts after this error. And they have told officials, the statement says, to suspend any repayment requests while we consider the right and fair outcome for the small group of people who were paid incorrectly in the past. Our thoughts remain with all the victims and families who suffered from the appalling injustice of the infected blood scandal, and nobody will want to see those families facing any more hardship or unfairness as a result of failings by the state. We'll take some calls in a second. Let me just play a voice note first before the break. This is from Elisa.
Oh, I'm sure that Farage is absolutely quaking in his boots, terrified, because the ex-Archbishop has criticised him. He's used to it. He'll be fine. He's just trying to do the best for the country, and I'm looking forward to him being PM one day. Now, as for Meghan and Harry, I have absolutely no interest in this topic, but I am going to state my opinion. Something that really bothers me is this. They haven't murdered anyone. They haven't committed paedophilia. And yet, people say, I hate them. Hate? For goodness sake, let's have a sense of proportionality here. And lastly, about that leaflet. If that leaflet needed to be printed and dished out, it means that there are people coming to this country who want to commit the crimes stated in that leaflet. No, we don't want them.
Very interesting points there, Elisa. I'd be very interested to hear whether people actually hate Harry and Meghan themselves or whether they just hate what they've said and done against our country. Can you separate the two? Let's hear another voice before the break. This one from Richard on the Archbish.
Hi, Peter. I think Rowan Williams and that Muppet that you had on, Matthew, was it, making his case, were brilliant examples of the two-dimensional morality of a lot of people who cling to the left these days. They think that being nice and being good are the same thing. How that man could have ever risen to the top of the church just blows your mind, doesn't it? I really think we should be calling out the left for this ridiculous skin-deep, oh, well, if I'm a nice person, then I must be a good person morality. They cannot bear the pragmatism that's required to look at things with a bit of nuance, and that's why they look at reforms immigration policies and think they're hateful. They're not hateful, they're just pragmatic. Anyway, really enjoying the show. Thank you.
Richard, thanks. Great voice note there, and thanks to Nat in Tel Aviv, who says there's been absolutely despicable behaviour from the government in regard to Nigel and the infected blood victims. In regard to things that regional phrases and things that people say, and perhaps not your accent, perhaps not being understood, Ernie says, us Welsh do that as well. We'll say, I'll do it now in a minute. That's a very Northern Irish thing as well. I'll come now in a minute. Now in a minute is a very interesting one there. I remember I worked in the Home Office with a particularly Scottish person, a sort of professionally Scottish person called Kenny, who had a very, very thick Glasgow accent. And the then Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, did mention to me one time that she found it hard to understand Kenny because he had such a thick accent, which I'm sure Kenny would even admit himself. I said, well, I have quite a thick accent. And she said, yes, but you have excellent diction, which was quite nice. That was on the way, actually, to an event with Harry and Meghan, where I met Harry and Meghan. They opened a road for us, which was kind of weird. More in my book. Lots more to discuss on all of this. We'll go to the phones in a second. Lee and Laura Jane are on the line. We'll get to them just after the break. If you want to get your voice on the air, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Harry and Meghan had no problem sitting across from Oprah Winfrey and unleashing on this family. When the Queen was in the final days, weeks, and months of her life, guess who was filming their Netflix docuseries where they accused an entire country of racism? Harry and Meghan, unbothered by the Queen's illness, unbothered by the fact that she was an elderly woman who, you know, should have been enjoying her twilight years, but was fearing what was to come from Montecito.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to the texter who says, who else is booking the day after the election, the next election off work to be able to watch the results as the Labour MPs getting their smug smiles wiped off their faces as they're voted out en masse. It will be hilarious. They're putting women and young girls in danger by allowing undocumented men without knowing their past into the UK. The people who hold them accountable and remove them at the next election. Dee says Harry and Meghan are coming to the UK because they are skint. They have wasted the inheritance with faux royal tours, designer clothes, 17 more toilets than they need. Neither of them have an ounce of talent, which was clearly demonstrated in Meghan's unintentionally hilarious cooking show. They have to come back with a begging bowl, knowing what a softie the king is. Do you know what? Actually, I saw quotes from the cooking show and I sent them to a friend, well, actually to Samara Gill, a colleague and friend, and this is, there were some crackers from what Meghan said. On hobby, she said, "Is this so wild that I do flower arranging and calligraphy?" On serving dinner, she said, "This is my favourite part, the plating. It's so amazing when food can be art." But my favourite one is on tea. I'm drinking a cup of tea at the moment. "I thought I'd make us some sun tea. It's just tea, but you can use nice silk bags. You let it steep with the warmth of the sun," says Meghan. It'll be good to have her back in the country. Let's talk a little bit about, to our callers, about whatever they want to talk about. Lee in Newcastle is a new caller. Lee, I'm delighted to speak to you for the first time. I know this asylum seekers document is on your mind. What would you like to say this evening?
No, it's... Hi, Peter.
Hi
no,
there.
It's more the fact about the traditional British religion.
Okay, sure.
I believe
so what Nigel Farage has been saying, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's heralding its own demise by trying to force closer links to Islam.
So what do you think about what Rowan Williams has said then, criticising Nigel Farage, saying he's being anti-Islamic?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that guy on your channel quite a few times. I don't know, he just talks a lot of waffle for me.
Do you mean Matthew Hulbert, who was on earlier on, not the former Archbishop of Canterbury?
No. Like I'm saying about the organised religion from Britain, we want to bring in Islam and expect to be close friends and all that. Like when the whole thing about Islam is theirs is the only religion.
Isn't that the case about Christianity too? They talk about the one true Catholic faith.
Yeah, but this doesn't kill people.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lee, listen, thanks.
Another thing about the organised Christians and Catholics and whatever else they are. Why has no one come out and talked about all the Christians that are being slaughtered around the world by Muslims?
Yeah, and the true genocides that are happening in places like Nigeria and Sudan. Very, very good points there, Lee. Thank you. Do give us another ring on another occasion. Laura Jane is in Hampshire and wants to talk about this too. Laura Jane, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Peter, for bringing up about the Christians being slaughtered in places like Nigeria. People forget about this. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was, yes, the debate that's been going on around the the retired Archbishop of Canterbury. I think that people forget that Jesus invented this religion called Christianity. That was the whole point. He sent his disciples out to convert people, Peter, and as much as he did tell us to respect and our neighbours, his whole point was to try and bring Christianity. Now, that doesn't mean to say I'm not trying to convert everybody here. All I'm saying is that 2,000 years ago, that was the reason why he sent the disciples out, to convert people to his religion. He obviously respected greatly, and whether it was the sinner or the other, any other religion. He was born a Jew. But the point is that I think we've forgotten that we are a Christian country. That without wanting to talk down other religions, we are a Christian country.
And that's part of it as well, isn't it? With Christianity and indeed any other faith. The point is, you're essentially saying, look, my faith is correct, or I believe it to be correct. Your faith is not correct. I can tolerate it and say, you're there, we have largely the same Judeo-Christian values, which this country is based on, that's fine. The problem is when you bring in other values and non-Christian, non-Judeo-Christian values, let's say for the sake of argument, to say that actually if, for example, in this Home Office document, you're not respecting women, you're not adhering to the law, and you're not doing things that are British and are in British law. Well, that's a problem.
It is a problem. I mean, you look at France; they're a secular society now, and it's very difficult for them in a way. I think it's more difficult, but I do feel that Farage, certainly the Christian the Christian group of Reform Vote, which I have become a member of as well as the main party, that they say that we are a Christian country, and that we, it's very important to respect other religions, but we are a Christian country, and we need to come back to that.
Can I just ask you, Laura Jane, you're saying it's important to respect other religions. Do you respect the Islamic faith?
As you know, I'm a Roman Catholic. Yeah. We even at my age, we spent a lot of time learning about other religions. The nuns were pretty good about that, considering. But what I worry about is the extreme Muslim, the extreme Islamists, because we do know that they don't have the same values, shall we say, as other religions, like the Jewish religion, the Christian religion, Hindu. There are a lot of religions out there which do not have the same attitudes as the extreme Islamists, and that does worry me. And why they had to bring this booklet out rather points to that fact. There is a different sort of culture coming over. A lot of them are Muslims. I'm not extreme Muslims, I'm saying. And I do worry about that. I think we have to think about it carefully. I'm not sure that the king would agree with everything I'm saying, because he
or perhaps Rowan Williams as well.
Definitely, and Sarah Mullally for that matter.
Yeah. Listen, really interesting call from Laura Jane. Very thoughtful, as always, and I appreciate that. I've learned a lot from your call, Laura Jane, as I often do when you're on the when you very kindly give us a ring, 0344 499 1000, if you want to add to what she has said there. Nancy in Kent says, "Evening, Peter. The government are trying to bury the statistics as to crime, rape, and nationality. They know the truth. This leaflet is them trying to get a handle on what is to come. A super backlash. The reason for the leaflet is because they know what's coming to women and girls in this country, and up to now they've hidden it. Importing men who think women are nothing is the problem, and it's out of control. Those men will use the leaflets as toilet paper. They already are a law unto themselves," says Nancy in Kent. Gary says, "This pair of grifters from Montecito have announced that they are returning to the UK. I guarantee you they won't be here long. After a few months gathering some material for the next Netflix series, they will dramatically pull their kids out of school, flounce back to the UK complaining of racism, intrusive media attention, which of course in reality they desperately crave, non-existent death threats to both of them, and an unbearable strained relationship with the royal family. They will then spill the beans about every private conversation they've had with King Charles and Camilla whilst they were here, much of which will be made up. But why wouldn't it be? Let's face it, Harry's royal connection is all they have left to peddle, so they have to milk it for every cent it is worth." Stuart says, "Ebbs for Prime Minister. The debate yesterday was top notch, not tosh. Go for it, men," says Stuart. Thank you for that. AW says, "Hi Peter, we are now allowing people into the country who are given pamphlets on how not to behave like a barbarian. On the other hand, good people, including professionals who can contribute to the country and want to come, are made to jump through hoops just to come. Watching a discussion about it is unbelievable. Other countries are laughing at us." Peter says, "Are we now supposed to print a menu of sexual assaults? For example, kissing 2 months, fondling 6 months, rape, take your chance on the judge. Starmer, unbelievably, was so much better than Burnham." Dave in London says, "What language is this booklet in? I thought no one knows which country these illegals have come from." Lots more messages to talk about. Becca says, "Religion shouldn't be in politics, and politics shouldn't be in religion." And Stephen Mansfield says, "I was a colliery underground electrician. We had numerous Polish colleagues working with us. One of the phrases they used when there was a break coming down on the face was, 'No power keeps coming all of the time,'" says Steve in Mansfield. Lots more of those as well, and thank you for them. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Elle, who says, "Who on earth in government is working without a calculator? First, the overpayment of pensions to veterans. Now it's the victims of infected blood. It's outrageous. Incompetence is running through the veins of government. It simply won't do." Teresa in Horley says, "I love your show. I just need to say that I'm a 64-year-old woman who lives very close to migrant hotels. Last year I was walking my dog and 3 or 4 were standing on the opposite side of the road. One called out, 'We can F you. We are not scared of your dog.' I shouldn't have to be subjected to this. Women of all ages are at risk." Teresa, I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that. That is absolutely grim, and it is just one story that I receive on numerous occasions of these horrible, horrible things that are said and sadly done to people as well. And David Shipley is standing by, the investigative journalist and former prisoner, who is going to tell us about the migrant who raped a sleeping woman, winning the right to remain in the UK under the European Convention on Human Rights. David, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for coming on again. Yeah. Just tell us about this story. What's been happening here, and why on earth is this person able to stay in the UK again? You would think, as the Prime Minister has said on numerous occasions, that if you break the law, you've got to go. In fact, he said it today, didn't he? He said it today that if you break the law, you're going to go. Let's have a look at that clip in a second, but just give us the details of this first, David.
Well, yeah, he did say that, but of course we also saw today posters saying that you might have to leave the country. You know, if it happens, you might go to prison. So actually, and that, I think the posters are more truthful than what the PM was saying. This particular case is from some years ago. I think it's about 8 years it took to for the man to admit his guilt. But he has managed to, having conducted a horrific rape of a sleeping woman, which apparently he's never shown any remorse for, he's managed to avoid being deported using the Human Rights Act and his ECHR rights. I think this is fundamentally the problem, that we all, I think almost all of us, agree that men who come to this country and then commit appalling sexual offences, who rape defenceless women and girls, shouldn't be allowed to live here anymore. That I think is a fairly broadly accepted point across society. And even the PM seems to be indicating he wants that. But no one in power is willing to actually do what it would take to achieve that, which would involve amending the Human Rights Act and leaving ECHR. And that unwillingness means that this is just going to keep happening.
It's very true. Let's just have a look actually at what the Prime Minister said today, which seems to be slightly at odds at what those posters say, as David said. This is the Prime Minister speaking earlier.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country, and we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
He was at a fly tipping point there. David, was he talking a load of rubbish?
He was, yeah. I mean, I think he's clearly very confused. First of all, we don't in any way attempt to deport every foreign national who commits any offence. I think we all know, we're not attempting to deport people who commit low-level offences in the slightest. And even for very serious offences, as we've seen with this case, often they're able to avoid deportation on human rights grounds.
So why doesn't he know these basic facts that you know, I know, our viewers and listeners know? They can see it with their own eyes.
I think, having watched Andy Burnham for the first couple of months of his time as PM, I think he's fundamentally a Metro mayor who's incredibly out of his depth. What he seems really comfortable doing is talking about buses. He's going to give us cheap buses, and he loves talking about that sort of stuff, and he's going to get the homeless in off the streets. It's all mayoral stuff. He actually said, by the way, when he gave that speech at the above the cliffs of Dover a couple of weeks ago, that he hadn't really got into the detail of the small boats crisis yet. I just don't think he's ever really thought about national issues. I don't really understand why he wanted to be PM, because he seems very uncomfortable with this serious stuff about our national interest and security.
Interestingly, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is thinking about it because she has to. She's now thinking about a Rwanda-style crackdown on field asylum seekers. Do you think this is just history repeating itself? Will that ever get off the ground, unlike those flights to Rwanda?
Well, I think it's interesting. They've spent, when they came in, I think it was on Starmer's first full day in the job, the 6th of July, he scrapped the Rwanda scheme. And they've spent 2 years talking about smashing the gangs, but failing at that. And as we, basically no one gets deported. I mean, I think of all the small boats migrants that have arrived since 2018, less than 4% have actually ever been sent home. And most of them are Albanians, where we've got a returns agreement. So actually, pretty much everyone else is still here. And that's 200,000 people who've crossed the channel illegally, all of them still here, basically. And I think what they're starting to realize is they need to do something different. I looked into the detail of this scheme today, actually, because I wrote a piece about it, and it's not really a Rwanda scheme. So what the Tories wanted to do was anyone who arrived illegally would be sent to Rwanda to have their claim processed there, so they wouldn't get to claim asylum in the UK at all. And the idea was to deter people crossing because they just knew they wouldn't come to this country. What Labour are talking about is potentially considering, as the word they're using, considering using third countries for removal. So if you've got someone from Eritrea and the courts say it's not safe to send them back to Eritrea, well, they say, OK, we're going to send him to Rwanda or wherever they choose. I think the problem is they're just too slow about this. We're nearly halfway through the Parliament.
Yeah.
And they're just starting to consider doing something which isn't anywhere near as robust as the Tory scheme they scrapped in July 2024. In November of last year, the Home Secretary talked about bringing in these new rules on asylum, on settlement, on stopping the Boris wave. We're nearly a year later and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, we've had so many policies. We've talked about them before, you and I've talked to them with other guests as well. For about a year now, we've had a whole raft of policies, pun not intended, on small boats, on immigration, on deportation as well. And there doesn't seem to be any great difference. The Home Office will speak about small boats crossings being down 44% on the year. But the fact is that they're still coming, and we've had that boat 230 people coming across last week, and there just doesn't seem to be any crackdown here really at all. They keep talking about these issues, but nothing seems to actually happen.
Yeah, and I do think Shabana Mahmood's instincts are probably quite sound on this, but the problem she's got is the Parliamentary Labour Party, who are just manifestly unwilling to vote for anything sensible. They find the idea of saying no to anyone entering the country deeply upsetting, and they just won't wear it. So I think that's the problem Labour have got, and I think also conceptually that they just aren't willing to accept the kinds of changes we would need. So, we know, even the government knows, the Home Office knows that we're importing lots of foreign men through the asylum system who are very likely to commit sexual offences, and they keep doing it. There's been more cases today. There's a trial which started of two Afghan nationals who are accused of raping a 14-year-old girl on a train. There's and they're in their mid-20s. There was another conviction that was announced of a different Afghan rape. These things are happening all the time, and we could stop that by just saying we're not going to let any Afghan men come here anymore.
Yeah.
But that's just too much of a leap for these guys.
Well, and instead they put a pamphlet out.
They also increased funding for Rape Crisis today, which I think is sadly going to be necessary because the government's policy is functionally a rape maximising policy.
Absolutely grim. David, listen, thank you for your analysis there. Really good to talk to you as always. Investigative journalist David Shipley, former prisoner. He's a lot of strings to his bow. Really interesting guy who has all sorts of interesting opinions. Whatever you think about them, let me know your thoughts. So 344 499 1000. Matt in Hove has been in touch and says, so we are welcoming migrants from countries where women are treated like slaves and rape is normal and gay people are thrown off tower blocks, and all we do is produce a glossy Home Office PDF manual on how to behave. What a joke the UK has become. I feel like leaving. Another person says, what part of it does Harry not understand? That most people don't care two jots about what he does, where he lives or who he's married to. He thinks the world revolves around him. Please just go away. We don't want to see you or your wife. Kevin says from Nottingham, hi Kev, he says in regards to the prodigal son's return to the UK with Meghan and the kids in tow, they need to remember that we may be a nation that loves jam at her prices. I don't think the contract will be preserved. I see what you did there. Says Kev, great show as always. Mac in Glasgow on different things that different people say. The Glasgow accent is amazing. A great Glasgow phrase is "Gon nae no day that," "Gon nae no day that," which means could you please not do that? The emphasis on the word no. I come from the Gorbals. It's an amazing accent there. My other favourite accents are Northern Irish. Very good, Mac. Thank you. And Irish. That is Mac in Glasgow there. Christine says, I was in Germany for a meeting of partners of a project. There were some Irish on the team. One of the Germans told me that after a while, the Irish sounded like barking. He then asked, when I was flying back to Ireland, I'm Scottish. Yeah, there's, I don't know if you've come across Callum MacDonald. He has this very lovely kind of mellifluous voice. He's one of the presenters in Times Radio, and sometimes I fill in for him. In fact, I'm filling in this weekend for him between 6 and 10 on Saturday and Sunday for Times Radio Breakfast. And Callum's voice is a lovely sort of Western Isles Scottish accent, and almost every time we get someone messaging in saying, you know, are Peter and Callum from the same part of Scotland? To which the answer is I'm from the part of Scotland that's very much in Northern Ireland. Colin in Chester says, why spend taxpayers' money on a leaflet that for the illegal migrants, they could have sent them all an emergency message on the subject on their phones. They all have one, says Colin. Very interesting point, Colin. And Becca's been in touch saying, did my message about Jessica's results come through? No, it didn't, Becca. And either there's been a catastrophic feeling behind the scenes, which is highly unlikely given the great professionalism of the team, or your message hasn't come through. Can you just send it again? Because we're dying to know about Jessica's GCSE results. Send it through again, Becca. The eagle-eyed chap that is the producer of this programme, James, will have a look for it. And as soon as I receive it, I will read it out. Lots more to discuss in a moment as well. We'll talk about Reform UK proposing scrapping student loans for EU students while urging Brits not to get ripped off by universities. Suella Braverman has been talking about this today. We'll get your views on all of it. Stay with us here on Talk.
Harry and Meghan had no problem sitting across from Oprah Winfrey and unleashing on this family when the Queen was in the final days, weeks, and months of her life. Guess who was filming their Netflix docuseries where they accused an entire country of racism? Harry and Meghan, unbothered by the Queen's illness, unbothered by the fact that she was an elderly woman who, you know, should have been enjoying her twilight years, but was fearing what was to come from Montecito.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right then, Becca's been in touch. We've got the news about Jessica's results. Evening, Peter, says Becca. As promised, Jessica was a little disappointed with her academic subjects, but she's done really well, much better than expected, with the more practical side subjects. She's gained the grades to go to college. She wants to work with SEN children like her. She really has made me proud. Thank you again for last night's shout out. It meant a lot to me and to her. A nice chippy supper for us, says Becca. Oh, I could have a nice chippy supper now. I had some fish earlier today and it was lovely. We could have it again. Becca, well done to you. You've done proud on the old on the mumming, excellent mumming there, and well done to Jessica as well. And I wish you well on your college course and looking after people who have special educational needs. That is a really good thing to do, and I hope your course goes really well, and well done on your results. Excellent work. Really glad to hear it. Thanks to Les, who says, as regards a phrase with an accent in the British Isles, it's a queer morning, is from Northern Ireland, sometimes also heard in the USA, southern states, a little in Northern Ireland, but mostly by Ulster Scots. I believe it is from the influence of King William III of the Netherlands. He did have something of an influence when it comes to Northern Ireland, I seem to remember. Linda Carroll Kelly says Farage doesn't need to stir up anti-Muslim feeling because they managed to do that all by themselves with their awful behaviour and their persistent law breaking. Linda says she is all Muslimed out. Right then, let's speak about Suella Braverman and what she has been saying about GCSEs and the results. She is the education spokeswoman for Reform UK. She's talked about GCSEs leading to A-levels, leading to university, which they often do. She's also said that if you're choosing a university course, that you need to be careful to get value for money. This is what Reform UK's education spokeswoman Suella Braverman has been saying today.
Don't get ripped off by the great university scam. Don't waste your time studying for a pointless degree at a mediocre university, if you want to work hard, if you want to move forward, earn a wage and have opportunities in your life, take up and look for apprentices.
She also talked more generally about GCSE results today.
There are over 1 million young people who are not in education, who are not in employment and who are not in training. That's 1 million young people not earning and not learning. It's a travesty and, quite frankly, a betrayal of the next generation. Today, about a third of those young people getting their GCSE results will have failed to pass English or maths. That's about 200,000. And that data, and the data also shows that those children who fail Key Stage 2 are more likely to end up on benefits. That costs the taxpayer £8 billion a year. We can't go on like that.
Let's speak to Councillor George Madgwick. He is the leader of Reform UK in Hampshire. George, clearly Suella Braverman talking here about the value of a university education. Does it have a value anymore? Because there are lots of people in huge amounts of debt who will have received their GCSEs today, thought, great, I'm maybe going to go on and do some A-levels, as many people do. But actually, Reform UK wants to change things, wants to talk more about skills, apprenticeships. Just tell us a little bit about your party's policy here.
Sure. I mean, I think there is a place for the university degree. I think there still is. I think that over the years, some of these university degrees that have come out are not worth the paper they're written on. You know, we have silly degrees now, like in esports, for example, or content creation or surf science. You know, there are a few of the silly ones that are out there. But we really need to support our younger generation in this country, and really kind of key skills like engineering, you know, mechanics, you know, building things for infrastructure. We need people that can build this country and build the infrastructure of this country as we go on throughout the years. We have to build more houses. We know that. We need skilled workers. And this way we can support people going into work from a very young age. Now, university costs a fortune. You rightly said that a lot of the debts are mounting up. I too have a university debt. I did Open University and now I'm paying it back. And is it valuable or not? That depends on what you're doing, but we really do need to support young people into work and get them away from this benefit system early on.
Yeah, and Suella Braverman as well today talking about a skills revolution, laying out the policy, just as you were talking about there, George. Interesting to hear from that as well. Let's hear what Suella's been saying.
Today, the British families who made our country great are the most disadvantaged in society. White British children are now the most likely group to not even enter GCSE exams. White working class boys are the group with the worst educational outcomes. This two-tier system of unfairness running throughout our educational system is deeply unfair and a grotesque waste of human talent. So that is why we are announcing today the apprenticeships wage credit, and this is going to build our skills revolution. So our apprenticeships wage credit will offer a wage credit of worth 30% to every small or medium-sized business that hires a new young apprentice.
Suella Braverman speaking there, and in front of, just for the benefit of our radio listeners, in front of a sign simply saying Britain needs apprentices. I mean, that is obviously the case, certainly, but there are a lot of young people. I was speaking to a 21-year-old actually on Sunday, a friend of mine, who was telling me that he's really struggling to get an apprenticeship, despite being someone who wants to get out of bed, wants to do work and wants to be an engineering apprentice, and they're just quite difficult to come by a lot of the time.
Well, for small to medium businesses, there sometimes lacks incentive to hire apprentices, especially young ones. And people do struggle to do that. And I think this new reform that we're doing really supports that. As I say, it supports the employer, giving more jobs to 16, 17 and 18-year-olds. You know, we know that only 1 in 5 apprenticeships that are currently offered are going to that younger demographic and that group. We also know that since 2011, 2012, we've gone from offering 500,000 apprenticeships every single year down to just over 300,000 now. So it's going on a downward trajectory, and we need to change that because we need skilled labour. There's an incentive for the employers, right? We're going to give them 30% back in credits, which would be fantastic. This is all going to be funded via different offsets. So we've already fully funded it and costed it. So that's really responsible to do. But equally, the most important thing, and this is the most important thing, more than cost savings and money, we're investing in our young people. We're going to give them skills that they can have for the rest of their life, and skills that can't be overtaken by AI as we go through that next generational curve. We need people, not foreign workers, being bussed in to do jobs like bricklaying. We need to train our young people to give them life skills that they can use for the rest of their lives. They've always got a job to fall back on. We need to get Britain working, and that's what Reform will do.
George, thank you for that. That's Chancellor George Madgwick there, as the leader of Reform UK in Hampshire. I just want to say, actually, Becca, if you're still watching and listening, and Jessica is still watching and listening, it's entirely up to you, and there's absolutely no obligation whatsoever. But if you text in one more time this evening and you send James, our producer, your address, and I'm not going to send it, it won't go anywhere else. James will see it and I'll see it, and I'll not send it anywhere else or even mention where you're from or anything like that. If you do that, I quite like to send Jessica just something small to say well done on her GCSEs, because there are lots of people who've been asking about it. So it's up to you. There's no obligation whatsoever, but if you want to text us in one more time with your address, I'll put something in the post. Won't be a big thing, won't be too dramatic, but just a little thing for Jessica to say well done. Right then, let's talk to Tony in Doncaster, who wants to talk about Christianity. Lots of people in touch about this, the debate we had earlier on about Nigel Farage and what he's been saying, and the nature of Christianity in our country as well. Tony, what's on your mind on this topic? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. It was just when I listened to people ringing in earlier on that saying that Christianity in general is being driven out by Muslim extremists, and I totally concur with that. But just to supplement that, Christianity has been driven out of Jerusalem by the Jewish faith, by the Israelis. And just to back that up with fact-checking, they have to do a lot into this. They're down to approximately 2%, 180,000 now. There's articles in The Guardian, CNN, which had 1.6 million hits, CBN, the Hudson Estate, the US government, you can go on.
And what are the reasons behind that? I'm very interested, because the Muslim population of Israel is about 20%, for example.
Well, I think you need to ask the Jewish people, because there's artifacts on Easter Sunday where you can check this yourself on YouTube with 1.6 million hits, where outside on Easter Sunday in the one or two churches that were left, the Jewish people are sat going outside the Israelis and spitting on the cross.
Well, I hope that's not the case. I mean,
I can assure you, it's there to be.
Okay, well, I'll go and have a look at that, Tony.
Yeah. So all I'm simply saying is, in an article to do with Christianity, well, I totally agree with what you said earlier on. Maybe the Israelis and maybe the Jewish faith may also want to look at themselves as well.
Okay, well, listen, thanks for your point, Tony in Doncaster. I'll look into that a little bit more. Certainly, when I went to Israel a number of years ago, there was, there's a huge celebration of the fact that I went to Bethlehem and I saw the Church of the Nativity, for example. That was a huge attraction for so many Christians and so many people. So I'd be very surprised if that was the case. But Tony says it is, so that's okay. And if anyone wants to respond to that, by all means, please do so. Lots of people getting in touch about this pamphlet, Gary says. So this hopeless government has sent a do not rape booklet to these illegal immigrants. What next? A do not dress provocatively booklet to local women and communities where these migrants will be dumped. Terry and Slough says this Prime Minister, Burnham, has actually done what I thought was impossible. In my opinion, he is worse than Starmer, and that took some doing. Also, we'll be talking in just a second about Harry and Meghan with a royal expert. We're taking it from a slightly different angle, because we heard a lot about this today in the last nearly 24 hours, actually. I was on my way home last night, about to go home, and I got a call from Australian television to ask me to talk about Harry and Meghan. Phil in Portsmouth says, I just got in, so may have missed the discussion, but I see this pamphlet for illegal migrants, a section on how to take care in the boats, life jackets, etc. Does that mean they're given the pamphlet in France, or is it for future reference? No, there's nothing about the boats in there, Phil, but listen, thank you for it. Lots of other people in touch about regional phrases, including from New Zealand. We'll get more into that in the next hour. And get your call in as well, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. The big story, of course, today, running through 24 hours, is Harry and Meghan. We'll tackle that from a slightly different angle in just a few minutes' time with a constitutional and parliamentary historian. They're moving back to the UK. The Prime Minister says their security is a private matter. Lots of people want to talk about Christianity as well and what Nigel Farage has been saying. He's been criticised by Rowan Williams, who used to be Archbishop of Canterbury. Illegal immigration, this migrant guide as well, understanding behaviours and expectations in the UK, essentially saying don't rape women. Also, there's lots of people talking about many other issues as well, including things that people say regionally and regional aspects to different things that people say. So we'll talk about all of that. The skills revolution as well. So much to discuss between now and 10. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, you give me a shout. You let me know what is on the tip of your tongue, what is on your mind. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. You can follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter or at Cardwell Peter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, you can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10. I hope you'll discuss it with me here on the Evening Exchange on Talk. And just a final mention of Becca and Jessica this evening. Becca has been in touch with their address, which obviously we're not going to reveal, but I am going to send Jessica something. Simon in Canterbury says, Cardi P, are you going to send Jessica a signed copy of your published works? Simon, she's 16. She doesn't want my books. She doesn't want a lot. Other people might, but since you've mentioned it, Simon, I suppose I should say that it is a mere 11 days until the paperback of Political Animals is out. You mentioned it, not me, so if Ofcom are watching, they can put that in their pipe and smoke it. Right then, let's talk about Harry, let's talk about Meghan, let's talk about what he's been saying, and previously saying, of course, that he didn't want to come back to the UK. He said that he couldn't see a time when he'd come back to the UK. Let's just remind ourselves of this clip.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do, and I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
There's also the whole row over the royal racist, what was said during that Oprah interview. This was an ITV interview from 3 years ago where Prince Harry told them about this. He denies actually calling the royal family racist. Let's hear what he had to say on that occasion.
In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even... Well,
the British press said that.
Right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they're racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
there was concern about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
Right.
So again, going back to the difference between what my understanding is, because of my own experience, the difference between racism and unconscious bias, the two things are different. But once it's been acknowledged or pointed out to you as an individual or as an institution that you have unconscious bias, you therefore have an opportunity to learn and grow from that in order so that you are part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Otherwise, unconscious bias then moves into the category of racism.
We also had Prince Harry talking about a good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up when it came to all sorts of things, especially his security. He said he couldn't think about bringing his kids back and all the rest of it. Let's hear a little bit of that from May last year on the BBC.
This all was initiated under a previous government, and there is now a new government. I have had it described to me, once people knew about the facts, that this is an good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up, and that's what it feels like.
That was the security aspect of his family. He clearly feels that they can be safe in this country now. But I mean, this has been talked about an awful lot over the past 23 hours and 7 minutes. It broke in the Sun last night at 10 o'clock. But I wanted to examine it from a slightly different angle. What is it like having a non-royal, someone who's in line for succession in the country, especially someone who stepped away from royal duties in such a public way? The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, saying their security as well as a private matter. The constitutional historian, Daniel Britton, is with me now, one of my favourite guests. Great to have you, Daniel. Just tell me the sort of overarching Daniel Britton view on the fact that they're coming back. This is quite weird. It reminds me a little bit of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, of the king who abdicated, and of course Wallace Simpson. But they didn't come back to the UK. They were sort of slightly in exile. I just wonder your thoughts on this.
It's really quite extraordinary, Peter. I mean, I'm probably as baffled as you are. You're probably a lot less baffled than I am. I do find it quite extraordinary. Harry does seem to be a very troubled individual. I think there are consequences. Harry is 5th in line to the throne. That's pretty close. No real reason to think he ever would succeed. And his children are the 6th and 7th in line to the throne. Now, other members of the royal family who do not do official duties, I'm thinking of, say, Prince Michael of Kent, Princess Alexandra, who I think does 1 or 2 things, but there are others, like the Duke of Edinburgh's children, Viscount Severn, and his daughter, Louise. They don't do any official duties, nor, of course, do Andrew's 2 daughters. There doesn't seem to be any great problem about those. But there must be a problem with someone who has been so closely involved at the top of the royal family, who did many, many, many visits and has many connections with a variety of institutions in his country and charities and his own Invicta Games. That does seem quite extraordinary, and I don't see how it's going to work in practice. Sooner or later, people are going to want to invite Harry and Meghan, very attractive couple, and Meghan was always thought to be someone just what the royal family needed. People are going to want to see them. Maybe in Sussex, or he's also Earl of Dumbarton and Baron Kilkeel. I think you might know where that is.
I do.
Peter.
I've been to Kilkeel on many occasions. It's a great place, very excellent fishing town. I do wonder where this all stands. I mean, what can they or can't they do constitutionally in terms of their rules, given that they were working royals, then not working royals? That's a slightly newish thing, but the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, of course, said when Megxit was sealed 6 years ago that you couldn't be half in, half out, but it seems they've kind of wanted that half in, half out rule and may well restore that rule when they come back.
You can't help feeling that with them living in this country, the half in, half out role will raise its head, because what are they going to do? They will get invitations. You can bet your bottom dollar they'll get invitations. And, well, do they say no to everyone, except, say, the Invicta Games? It seems so difficult to work out a position. Doesn't look as if a position has been worked out at this stage, let alone the complicated stuff about security, and people are going to start asking questions about it. Certainly the press will. Undoubtedly. It's going to be very tricky to manage.
Yeah, it's interesting, certainly, with that, because what does William do now, especially as they are not on speaking terms? And we know that Charles, the King, has met Harry, Meghan and the children recently, but he was only told on Sunday of this too. So his role within this and his relationship with them will come into even greater focus, especially as there does seem to be some sort of rapprochement there, but certainly not with William.
Absolutely so. I mean, clearly the relationship with William is very, very difficult. One would hope that it isn't bust forever, but it is possible it could be, and this might actually exacerbate that. The King undoubtedly wants to see his children and grandchildren and Meghan, and I'm sure, as Anthony Selden said on the news there, the King's health must be a concern to Harry. But my concern is that this is going to become very muddled. and there'll be questions about whether this is an official engagement or it is a private engagement. And I think that will make life very difficult for people in the rest of the royal family.
To say nothing of the security aspect of things, the Prime Minister said it's a matter for them. In fact, let's see if we can see the Prime Minister saying that. He sort of had about one line saying, welcome back to the UK, essentially, and it's kind of up to them security-wise. Let's just see what the Prime Minister was saying earlier today on this.
Well, this is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move that they're making.
I mean, that's it, basically. When it comes to the provision of security, what's your view on this, Daniel?
It's going to be very tricky, isn't it? It's going to be very tricky. They can't have no security, can they? Are they having private security in some way? There will be questions about all these things, parliamentary questions about these things. It's going to come up. I wouldn't be at all surprised at the next audience of the King and the Prime Minister, this is going to be discussed, undoubtedly. You mentioned earlier Edward VIII. He did come back, but only to see his family. He never did really, I mean, I'm sure he made personal visits to people he knew, but he didn't take any part in British official life, except actually attending the funeral of his mother and his brother, George VI. He didn't go to the Queen's coronation, Queen Elizabeth, in 1953. Well, are we going to see Harry go to a future coronation one day? Because it will happen. His brother, William, is that going to happen? If he goes, there'll be talk. If he doesn't go,
certainly.
And as you say, all those occasions are going to require security.
Thank you very much indeed to Daniel Britton there. Always worth listening to, a constitutional historian. Appreciate that. Lots of reaction to what Tony was saying previously. Daniel, who has got in touch from Israel, and he said, I actually had to take my car off a motorway to write this message as I'm in so much shock from the caller before he talked about Christians in Israel. First of all, let me make one point clear. There is no other country in the Middle East in which all religions are respected and allowed to practice their faith anytime and anywhere other than Israel. While there are ultra-Orthodox Jews who have been known to spit at churches, this is a very small and very extreme minority who also oppose the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. These are the same ultra-Orthodox Jews you sometimes see at anti-Israel protests. They do not represent the average Israeli or policies of the Israeli governments. The vast majority of Israelis have nothing but respect for Christianity and Christians, but it is important to note that most Israeli Christians are Arabs that live in mixed Muslim and Christian Arab cities, with the Muslims in those cities being the ones pushing them out. This, by the way, is what I fear will happen in the UK eventually when they become a much larger minority. Daniel, thank you for that. Tony has also been criticised by Elisa, who says Tony has been brainwashed by anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli propaganda. Chris says it's not a Meg's back, it's a Meg's Legsit she's done in the USA. The grifters have been found out. Simon Wanstead says your last caller saying about the Jews spitting on a cross is correct. Today I've watched numerous videos of Jews spitting on Christians on the cross and also blatantly shooing Christian tourists away from highly religious spots. The police there had to act as a go-between. So sad. Well, Sim, I would certainly reference what Daniel said there a minute ago. David in the Cotswolds says Starmer attacked the family farmers. Rayner wants to build on the green belt. Then they banned hunting. Now the Prime Mayor... See what you did there? Prime Mayor Burnham wants to send illegals here carrying their Don't Rape Children booklet. We're not Islington around these parts, says David. Dave says Kiwis love to end sentences, yeah, no, but the one that makes me want to crush a grape, debut is pronounced over here, debut, certainly. Interesting. MC says, great show, loved your ice cream comments on Twitter, very good. Yes, it was an ice cream related disaster. I had a 6-year-old who had a friend of mine, her son was there, my friend Andrea, and her little son Eddie, great little fella, and we got him a chocolate ice cream. And gravity ensued. The bowl of chocolate ice cream on the cone fell on the ground. There were angry tears, and eventually Eddie said, Peter, grow up, it's only ice cream. Stay with us here on Talk.
Harry and Meghan had no problem sitting across from Oprah Winfrey and unleashing on this family. When the Queen was in the final days, weeks, and months of her life, guess who was filming their Netflix docuseries where they accused an entire country of racism? Harry and Meghan, unbothered by the Queen's illness, unbothered by the fact that she was an elderly woman who, you know, should have been enjoying her twilight years, but was fearing what was to come from Montecito.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I can honestly tell you, spitting in Israel was not something I thought would come up on the programme this evening, but another person has got in touch, and we've got a caller on it in a second. The incident in Jerusalem with Jews spitting was deplorable. Compared with the rampant violence and bomb attacks on Christians across the Middle East, an isolated spitting incident is hardly proof of persecution. The vast majority of Jews in Israel are respectful, nothing like the attacks in Egypt, etc., with many killed. Gerald in London has a perspective on this too. Gerald, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Peter. Can I just say that I cannot say that this hasn't happened. I know from personal experience. I have a friend who visited Jerusalem some years ago and went backwards and forwards a few times. Christian, and I'm Jewish, by the way, and they had experienced it. Now, can I just say that this is a tiny, tiny number of young children who are ultra-Orthodox. It is inexcusable. When I heard about it, it absolutely made me weep because Israel gets such a bad publicity. And when I hear about this sort of thing happening, it really, really, on behalf of all my Jewish friends and my Jewish community, we abhor this behavior. It is disgusting and not condoned.
Of course, and I want to be really clear, Gerald, that I am not asking you or any other Jewish person to apologise for it on behalf of your people. I would never, ever do that. But I'm really glad you've said what you said.
I know that, but can I just say that I've taken Christian friends of mine on numerous occasions now to the holy sites. And I see when I go to Israel, many, many, many people go on pilgrimage to the old city, to Bethlehem, and it is an industry. I mean,
well, I've done it myself, Gerald. I've been to Bethlehem, and it's beautiful. But yes, there is a major tourism aspect to it, no doubt about that.
Can I just say, on behalf of my community, anybody, Christian, any religion, is free to go and pray and to visit the holy sites unencumbered. It's just this tiny, tiny minority.
Well, why do they do it? I mean, what is their thought on it? And we had a texter as well who was talking about them being against Israel as a state. There'll be a lot of viewers and listeners, especially as we covered Israel a lot in this programme, especially since the dreadful, horrendous terrorist attacks of the 7th of October, will ask, why do these people believe this stuff? What do you understand their motivation and belief to be, Gerald? Clearly not yours.
First of all, these people are a tiny sect. They are a sect. They're like you'd find in some sort of deep southern state in America where they're secluded. They live a very, very secluded life. They are. It's sort of inexplicable to me because it's sort of so alien to anything I believe in.
Yeah.
However, there are people unto themselves. They keep themselves to themselves, and they are brainwashed, I suppose, is the way to do it. But they are a very, very small number of people. They don't speak for the vast majority of Jews and Israelis who really who welcome everybody. It is a secular country, and there are Christians and Jews and Muslims living and praying. And
unlike many other neighbouring countries and other places in the Middle East. Gerald, have you ever lived in Israel yourself?
No, but I've got family and friends who live in Israel. I've been backwards and forwards many, many times. It's a great country to visit.
Oh yeah, I was there almost exactly this time last year. I'm a huge fan of Israel. Beautiful place. I just wonder, the thing I can never get my head around when it comes to Israel, and again, I'm not asking you to explain this, excuse it, whatever. I'm just interested in your perspective, Gerald. Are the settlements, because I can understand why people believe the land is theirs, but I get that. I get that it's disputed. I'm across that. What I don't understand is why people want to live there. I know the housing is cheaper, but given how difficult that is, and how we've seen settler violence recently, we've seen reprisals against them, we've seen all sorts of problems for many years, but particularly in the last few months. What do you think the mentality, in your experience or your view, of people who are settlers on disputed territory is?
I wish I could answer that. I can't. All I know is the people who I do know live in Israel have mixed opinions themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, 50% of the population voted against Netanyahu, and 50%
yeah, of course.
For.
It's a democracy, which so few people actually ever remember. And similarly say, oh yes, well, every Jewish person and every Israeli has to account for the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu. No, they don't, any more than you, Gerald, or I have to account for the actions of Andy Burnham.
Can I just mention one thing? Because I have flown over the West Bank on 2 or 3 occasions at low level by helicopter. The West Bank is very, very integral to Israeli security. If it's very high ground, the narrowest point of the West Bank to the sea is 9 miles. It's around 9 miles. And so the West Bank is a security nightmare for Israel. And if you had a Hamas-style October the 7th operation, God forbid, on the West Bank aiming towards Israel mainland, then the country could be cut off very, very easily. It's a very narrow strip of land. People don't really understand how small it is. So it has a massive security implication.
Of course. Just before you go, Gerald, I wonder if I could ask you about the fact that Tony rang in and essentially said there are Jewish people who believe, and he's factually correct in that there are Jewish people who have spat at Christians. That is factually correct. But as you correctly say as well, it's a very, very small number of those people. I just wonder, are there parallels with a majority of Muslims in this country are peaceful, for example? Do we ask them to apologise or take responsibility for the actions of a violent minority of Muslims, do you think?
I don't want to go there.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't want to go there. I mean, it's all I can answer is that the vast, more or less every Jewish friend I have would feel exactly the same as I do.
Okay, sure.
As Jews, we live in a Christian society. We feel very happy living in a Christian society. And I just want to pass on a message to your listeners that under Jewish law, it's always subservient to English law. And so it's very easy for us to assimilate, and we do, into English culture. I was born in England. I feel very English. I'm a Jewish Englishman, very proud of it.
I had breakfast this morning with some lovely Jewish friends, and that was a wonderful thing and really interesting to talk to you, Gerald. Please give me a ring on any other topic if you want to. Gerald in London there. We'll go to Grace in just a second, who has some thoughts on Farage. Just want to read out a couple more messages. Luke in Bolton says, the booklet that has been produced relating to expected UK moral standards is absolutely despicable. The fact we are willing to accept people into the country who need to be told not to rape people, it's unthinkable. Instead of mass producing a booklet at taxpayers' expense, why not just send an email to new arrivals on their taxpayer-funded mobile phone, says Luke. Lee says, Harry and Meghan, what a disgusting couple. In one of his departing videos, I believe he had Stone Roses playing where a lyric said, burn the town where I was born. I don't know if that's true, but Lee remembers it that way anyway. I can't believe they have the nerve to return, bearing in mind the disrespect shown towards a family. Will they arrive on a small boat in order to get all the benefits, says Lee. Yeah, he talked about that freedom flight, didn't he? Burnham at the tip, he should stay there, says one texter. Joanna says this Home Office guide is admitting what we already know since David Lammy refused to release figures of crimes and ethnicity. These migrants already know what's wrong. They hide their crimes. They think it's funny to video their crimes to show their mates and boast about them. Sarah says Harry will eventually meet someone else. Meghan will use that to spin the second coming of Diana through the loveless marriage theme, writing a biography or memoir. I've always thought that is likely to happen. The incident in Jerusalem, actually I read that earlier on. Let me read this one about Jessica, who has got her GCSE results today. Alex says, it's wonderful news about Jessica. Well done, Jessica. I was like you. I didn't do particularly well with academic subjects. I moved into hospitality straight after school. I got to management level for a really fine dining establishments, then changed career into helping others, which I found more rewarding. You can still earn lots of money by doing apprenticeships, which can get you a really good job. Well done, Jessica. Plenty of friendly advice for her as well. Let's go to Grace now on the Archbishop, because this is Rowan Williams, who has been slagging off Nigel Farage. Grace, what do you make of it all?
Oh, very many things. I think that one thing that sticks out to me, first of all, is that he's been accused of undermining Christianity. Now, I don't see how one can do that, because Christianity is ultimately founded on events, and we were talking a little bit a moment ago.
It would take a lot more than one politician and a number of remarks to essentially say that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that some people do stupid things whilst identifying as Christians, but none of that ever changes the events of Christ's life and of what Christ taught. And I know that a lot of people presume it all to be fictional, but I came to conclude there's actually good reason to believe that it really happened, in which case what matters is the truth of what Christ did, and not people having political wranglings about it.
So do you think the Archbishop should have made these comments?
I think possibly, because we do see that Jesus ultimately does make a point of confronting people who are trying to misappropriate religion for the purposes of power and of looking down on others. And it often feels to me that, dare I say it, Farage, possibly some other people, are using the label of Christianity as a way of kind of disagreeing with other people and separating themselves from other people, rather than having a real conviction in their hearts for following Christ.
Does he need to, though? I mean, you would argue he does, because he needs to be saved and have salvation and so on. But if he's essentially just saying, we're a Christian country, if we have a load of Muslims who come in, that's going to dilute that. And that's largely what he's saying. I mean, he's not having a theological argument here.
Well, I think he's mistaken in that presumption, because actually what's making our country less Christian is that people who are white British like myself are mostly choosing not to be Christian, and you've got every right to choose not to be Christian. But it's not really Muslims who are causing white British people to choose to ignore God. That's a personal decision for each individual. And I don't really, I mean, I had a really great discussion with some Muslims more than a few years ago now, when I was at university, and we talked about how we share the view that science indicates that there is a designer, i.e. God. And I thought, it's so nice to talk to some people who actually believe in God, because most of the time here in Britain, most people I talk to just think that God is fiction, and they're, again, entitled to think that. But actually, whilst there are some things about Islam and what Muhammad did that I really disagree with, actually it was nice to talk to some other theists.
Well, maybe should have a trip to Northern Ireland. Plenty of people there who have strong views on the Creator from lots of different backgrounds as well. Grace, thank you for that. Shell has been in touch. Michelle, who says the leaflet doesn't say these abhorrent crimes are as such, or that they're evil crimes and not tolerated at all. It merely says they might affect your asylum claim or land you in prison. God forbid. They're more concerned about the invaders than us Brits. If you need yet more proof of this being by design, here it is. Not sure what it will take for you folk in the media to get it, but the evidence is stacking up. This leaflet should not be brushed under the carpet by the media like it will inevitably be by the illegals, says Michelle. Michelle, we've been talking about it all day. We talked about it loads in the story yesterday. I think, you know, I am a member of the media class. I am a member of the media, certainly, but I do think, certainly on this station, we've been talking about it. Anyway, Michelle also says no one cares about Harry and Meghan. Everyone is furious about being put in danger. I think both things can be true at the same time, believe me. Looking at some of our ratings, and we have data all the time about who's watching and well, not who's watching, but how many people are watching and listening. We have that data all the time. You can see it on YouTube yourself as well. And I'm afraid people aren't interested in the Harry and Meghan story, but we made a very clear decision as a programme not to go over and over and do loads and loads on it. But lots of people in touch about it this evening, and as always, this is my show, but it's your show too. You want to talk about it or not talk about it? We'll do that. Zarina, I haven't heard from you in a while. I hope you're well. Zarina says, hello, Peter. I think Harry and Meghan are continuing with their rampage. Sorry, not I hope. I think. Let me get that right. I think Harry and Meghan are continuing their rampage of greed. However, Meghan holds the ace. When she has finally rinsed Harry and his family for everything she can get, she will go on to capitalise on the relationships. Presumably she will have an amazing divorce settlement, which might curtail her book, but it remains that she will continue to exploit the royal family. And Gary says Burnham has claimed that he will deport migrants who break the law. Well, he needs to get creative then and deport every migrant arriving here in a boat from France on the grounds that the moment those migrants engaged people traffickers to get them across the channel, they themselves broke the law by committing the serious crime of conspiracy, solicitation and aiding and abetting. Because that's what you do when you pay or incite somebody to provide an illegal service. Luckily for us, the international laws governing asylum allow a country to refuse a request for asylum if the claimant has committed a serious crime. So that's job done. Kick them all out, says Gary. We'll talk in just a second about West Ham, who have been telling fans to stop anti-Israeli chants. We'll also talk about those ultra-Orthodox Jews with the editor of the Jewish Telegraph, Paul Harris. He will be with us. Plenty more time for calls, texts, tweets and voice notes as well. If you want to get those in, please do send them in. 0344 499 1000, the main number. Text, of course, 87222 with the word talk in your text. Jason in Whitby says, Grace is missing the point. I'm an atheist, but I'm happy to live under Christian values. Lots to discuss in the next 26 minutes, right up until 10 o'clock when Ash takes over. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Really nice. Eamon has been in touch. Sorry, this has just literally been put through as I was reading there, put through by the producers. Eamon says, no much focus on biscuits tonight. Interesting you should mention that, Eamon. Actually, our marvellous assistant producer, Matt, has brought in some biscuits, and let's just say they have been warmly received by everyone. And they've certainly been focused on, yes. That is one thing you could say. On a more serious note, Joanna in Birmingham has been in touch with a really nice message, and I just want to thank you for it, Joanna. She says, I'm going through a very traumatic situation right now. I'm really sorry to hear that, Joanna. But I just want to say thank you so much for your show on Talk. Watching your show really reduces my severe anxiety and gives me something to focus on. You're helping me get through these dark days. Thank you again, and please keep doing what you do as you do it so well. Joanna, that is lovely. I don't usually read out those messages because I don't want my ego to explode or my head to get too big. But that is just lovely. And I really appreciate the fact that you sent it through. I'm so sorry to hear you're having a rough time. And whatever it is, I just hope you get through it and that it gets better and life returns to a calm. And I talk sometimes about the sort of privilege of this job, and it is an incredible privilege because you give me, you know, quite literally lend me your ears essentially and your eyeballs and all the rest of it when you're watching on YouTube and when you're watching on your screen. And inviting me into your home or your car or your van or your truck or whatever you're doing, whether you're out and about having a walk with the dog at night or whatever is happening, it's a real privilege to have that company. And I know there are lots of people who will never contact us. There are loads of people who contact us, and that's great when they do. But there are many, many more thousands of people who, for whatever reason, that they just don't feel they want to ring in, or they don't want to feel they want to text in or whatever. I really value you too, whether you're texting in or whether you're not texting in, whether you're contacting us or not contacting us. I value your support, the fact you're listening and watching to the programme, and that you're supporting us here. And you may not agree with every single word you hear on this station, and that's fine. I don't agree with every single word I hear on this station. I listen to other people's shows and I think, oh, no, I'm not so sure about that. Sometimes when I hear maybe other presenters or different guests or whatever, and that's okay. Because the thing that unites us is that we have common sense. We want this country to be much, much better than it is, and we will keep telling each other our opinions and supporting one another as time goes on. So thank you to everybody, and particularly thank you to Joanna as well, and I wish you well, and I appreciate that message. Paul Harris is editor of the Jewish Telegraph and joins me now. Paul, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Paul, I have a couple of questions for you. We did originally invite you on, and I will get to this point in a second, about West Ham telling fans to stop anti-Palestine chants. We have this evening as well received quite a number of people talking about ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel who have been spitting on Christians and sometimes Christian sites as well. I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit about this very small number of people who've been doing this. Real concerns. We've had people from Israel as well, people saying that it's, they've seen videos and so on about it. How big a problem is it? Is it just a very, very small minority?
It's a small minority of extremely ignorant people. I've been virtually spat on by some of these people in areas like Mea Shearim in Jerusalem because I don't conform to the way they look. They do not represent mainstream Jews. They don't represent Israelis who are extremely tolerant. Israel is a multicultural society. Christians, Jews, Muslims, people of no faith, people, they all live there quite peaceably. There is a small minority of ultra-Orthodox Jews who are intolerant of anybody who is not like them, and some of them do behave like this, unfortunately, I'm embarrassed to say.
Why do they believe what they believe? Why do they feel that is something they can do?
Because they don't appear to accept anybody other than themselves, or the way they look, or the way they behave. I mean, these are the same sort of people who will sometimes stone ambulances on the Sabbath because they're driving on the Sabbath. They're the same people who will avoid conscription into the Israeli army. They're the same people who, unfortunately, sometimes will behave like radicalized Muslims, and they're not people I identify with or recognize as being members of my own religion. I mean, I abhor their behavior.
Paul, thank you for illustrating that point for us. I really appreciate that. Maybe you could tell us about West Ham United urging supporters not to sing offensive chants, including anti-Palestine messages about the Israeli international Manor Solomon. Just tell us about this controversy.
Well, first of all, it's quite unusual to hear football fans actually chanting anti-Palestinian chants. I mean, normally it's anti-Israel.
Yeah.
This is not something that Manor Solomon would subscribe to. Again, deeply offensive, not something that I would support. And indeed, I would not imagine, well, I know that Manor Solomon would not subscribe to this. I'm surprised at West Ham fans, to be quite honest. I'm more used to hearing them singing out "Forever Be Blowing Bubbles" than these sort of things. It was deeply offensive, but these sort of things occurred when Manor Solomon played for Leeds as well. There are some very unusual chants from the terraces. I'm a Tottenham fan. I don't like the chants that come from the Tottenham fans about calling themselves Tottenham Yids and calling players Yiddo. I know Spurs tried to stop this over the years. For some reason, this is something that has been adopted by Tottenham fans. I mean, interestingly, when Manor Solomon was playing for Spurs, I actually spoke to him after a game at Burnley. I mean, he played only a handful of games for Spurs. And I asked him what he felt about the Tottenham fans chanting Yiddo. And he got the wrong end of the stick completely and said he thought it was wonderful that they supported him as a Jewish player. And one of the Tottenham media team had his head in his hands as he saw him saying this, and actually took me on the side and said, we'd like to put him right on this and point out that, this isn't something that he's chanting, that is being chanted at him. But these chants from the West Ham supporters are awful. I mean, what hasn't been widely reported is the fact that, if this continues, West Ham United could face sanctions and a fine from the FA if they can't control their fans. I mean, this has happened before, where fans are out of control, where fans have been chanting homophobic songs, or where they've actually been chanting racism against black players. You've probably heard these before, making monkey sounds and things like this. This is no different. It's something which shouldn't be tolerated, needs to be wiped out.
Okay. There's a story just breaking this evening that apparently Premier League, I've just been told in my ear actually, that apparently Premier League players will be taking the knee again as in the name of anti-racism. I just wonder whether you think that's appropriate, Paul?
I've never subscribed to the view that players should take the knee. I mean, this is supposed to really identify with all types of racism. And I mean, the knee really is a question of promoting Black Lives Matter. From my point of view, I believe all lives matter. And I think, if players are going to make any sort of gesture, it should be for all lives matter. And I don't think that taking the knee purely to identify with the black community is appropriate. I think it should just apply to everybody.
Paul, thank you. I really appreciate your time this evening. Really interesting to hear your views. That is Paul Harris there, who's editor of the Jewish Telegraph. And West Ham released a statement today on this, saying the club is aware of an offensive and divisive chant containing an anti-Palestine message being sung by a section of away supporters during an opening EFL Championship match at Burnley on Sunday afternoon. We understand that singing and chanting is a traditional and deeply embedded part of the matchday experience. We encourage our supporters to sing loud and proud about their football club and the players wearing the claret and blue shirt, but never in a way that creates division or causes offence among fellow fans. Regardless of their background, every supporter within our diverse fan base should also be free to enjoy watching the team play football without fear, discrimination or abuse, and we remain committed to ensuring that everyone feels safe, respected and included. Daniel's been back in touch from Israel, the guy who came off the motorway. He says, to text me, he says, just answer your question about why extreme Orthodox Jews have been known to spit at churches. It hasn't arrived. According to the Jewish faith, Israel should not exist. As far as attacking people of other faiths, this is because these sick people, who I once again have to emphasise are a tiny minority, also believe that no other faith should be practiced in the Holy Land. Sorry for repeating myself, but I have to state again that these people do not represent the Jewish people, or 99.9% of Israelis, says Daniel in Israel. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate your call or your messages on that. Michelle has been in touch and says, is there any way Talk could maybe do a live poll on the YouTube channel or become more interactive with its YouTube audience? I see it done with other live channels similar to yourselves. I think it could be really valuable. Michelle, that is a really good point. That's slightly above my pay grade, but I will, the next time I have a meeting with the boss man, the Ayatollah of audio himself, Denny Morris, I will bring up your point and I will see what he says. So thank you very much for that. MC has just sent a nice message saying, great show. Appreciate that. Tuning into the show in the last hour, says Ali, dry all day but a bit colder now in the morns. Holidays over next week and back to the usual grind of work and prepping for sending my daughter to uni. And Alison says she's enjoying the show and in County Down, but will soon be back in County Antrim. Really lovely message from her as well. Sue in Brighton says, I just want to echo Joanna's message. I'm very anxious. I struggle to watch most television for various reasons. I can't concentrate or even just don't enjoy the programme. I love my TV though, so find your show such good company. Sue, that's lovely. Joanna, just so many lovely messages. I really appreciate it. And I just want to say, it's not just about me, it's about the whole team behind the glass there. We've got Luke, who's on the tech opping, and if we're going to a break or are you to hear people, I mean, he is vital for all of that. We've got James there, he's the producer. He and Matt, the assistant producer, have been working all day to get all the guests in, get them up on Zoom, make sure we can see them and hear them. Matt answers the phones as well. He's getting people on the phone so we can speak to them after the break and selecting the callers and all the rest of it. We've got Luke as well. He's the vision mixer who has been helping us with that to make sure that all the words on the screen and you can see everything and make sure that you have the numbers on the screen as they are right now, 0344 499 1000. We've got people outside in the office who have been cutting clips for YouTube, have been cutting clips when I say Andy Burnham said this today. You know, that doesn't happen by magic. That is someone sitting there saying, right, what's the best bit that we can say from Andy Burnham? He said three things. What's the one thing we're going to say? Put that into a 15-20 second clip. We've got web people, we've got management, we've got people who deal with the the rotas. We've got people who are work on other shows as well. We've got a huge number of, well, not a huge number of people actually. We're quite a small station, but there are just loads of people who work to bring these shows to you right throughout the day and night as well. And it's not just about me. I'm just the gob on a stick. We'll take more calls and chat to a few people after the break. We'll also have a quick chat with Ash as well and have a discussion about what's coming up in his programme. And I hope you can enjoy that too between 10 and 1. Stay with us here on Talk.
Harry and Meghan had no problem sitting across from Oprah Winfrey and unleashing on this family. When the Queen was in the final days, weeks, and months of her life, guess who was filming their Netflix docuseries where they accused an entire country of racism? Harry and Meghan, unbothered by the Queen's illness, unbothered by the fact that she was an elderly woman who, you know, should have been enjoying her twilight years, but was fearing what was to come from Montecito.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ernie's been in touch and says, yes, it's a small minority of radicalised people like Orthodox Jews in every religion. Thankfully, it's the minority. It's only a problem when people think they are the majority. Margaret in Birmingham also sends a lovely message. You tune in from 7 all the time, says, Margaret in Birmingham, thank you. And from memory, your daughter is called Lisa, and I wish you both well. Also, very good one from Elisa in Chelmsford, who you may have heard earlier on in the voice note. She says, you and your team have ruined my social life because I'm always at home now listening to you in the evenings. I suppose it is a form of social life. Elisa, you're very welcome to the programme, and I think you perhaps had your tongue in your cheek when you were sending that one in, and I thank you for it. Let's speak to Marie in Barry, who wants to talk about this migrant guide. Marie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, the migrant guide thing, I suppose, it's been the topic of the day, I guess.
Yeah.
Really. I wanted to speak about Ebbs that was on in the first hour.
Yeah, on the debate desk, yeah.
Yeah, he made a comment right close to the end of his section on there. So I would have liked to have heard back from him on this. He made a comment about the thing, and he said it was like, we need to see if it works. And it's like he's making women and children like the guinea pigs for some sort of test. And
I think he would probably say that wasn't quite what he meant. Maybe he was sort of saying, look, maybe this can help in some way, and maybe we should give it a go. But I think the wider view. Hold on a second, Marie. I think the wider view a lot of people would have is that actually it shouldn't be needed in the first place. Maybe that's your view, Marie.
Yeah, it shouldn't be needed in the first place. But then to say, let's give it a go, like, how much of a go do you want to give it? Like, how many more women, children would have to be raped, murdered, assaulted etc., for us to say, oh, okay, now it's enough. Like, how many more? When, especially because, I don't know if it's whoever it is, won't release the statistics about how many of the different
foreign nationals when it comes to breaking it down. Yeah, well, that was David Lammy when he was Justice Secretary. Maybe his successor, Alex Norris, will. So maybe we will get that information. We should have it. We should have all this stuff. They can very easily give us the information.
Yeah, but as I say, I would have liked it. It was like, I know when you're talking and somebody asks you a question, you say something and maybe you haven't thought it through. And I would like to hope that the way that he said that wasn't really perhaps a thought through comment, but just saying like, let's give this a go.
Okay.
It did seem really quite disrespectful and like, well, we're not guinea pigs here.
Yeah. Really interesting point there. Really interesting points there, Marie. Thank you for those points from Barry and Wales there. Michelle's been in touch and says, we can all appreciate the company talk gives us many more people than you'd likely think. We can all disagree at times, get a bit spicy, but it's all appreciated. It expands perspective. Michelle, you're absolutely right. And do you know what, Michelle? You have disagreed with me on a number of occasions, and that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. The world will continue to turn. Michelle and I don't agree on everything, and that is absolutely fine because we disagree without being disagreeable. We have arguments. We chat to one another. We talk about things. That's all fine, because the problem is there are loads of people out there who would not like you to express your opinion. There are loads of people who would like you to sit down and shut up and be quiet and say, yes, nod your head and say those are the those are the accepted views. Well, the thing is that most people, including all of our viewers and listeners, have a brain in their head, and they perhaps say things that are not exactly the stated line, exactly what the government would like to say us, or the media, or whoever else would like us to say. And that is the point of this station. We're the home of common sense, and you're going to get plenty more of that as time goes on. Regarding the Church of England situation, Ashton's been in touch and says, where's the democracy? Many churches are funded by the taxpayer and donations. Surely archbishops shouldn't be going around spending this money on reparations without the consent of people who fund them. And on Nigel Farage, Mark in Lincolnshire has been in touch on this one. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Mark, what's on your mind? Good to talk to you.
Hi there, Peter. Yeah, well, I'm actually going to go off on a tangent because you sure seem to have taken over with this spitting thing. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to weigh in a little bit on that, Peter. Okay. I did actually bring this to your attention, I think, on the show a few months ago, I think. Yeah, I mean, I keep hearing this thing coming back all the time about it being a small problem. It's clearly not that small a problem, is it?
It's not a small problem, but it's a small number of people, Mark.
The Times of Israel have reported on this.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest with you, the thing that worries me more about it is there's a politician in Israel called Itamar Ben-Gvir.
Mm-hmm.
He's the national security minister.
Yep.
And he was asked by journalists about this, and he describes it as an ancient Jewish custom. He also,
well, he's a nutter. I mean, he's a total nutter.
Well, he also states that it's not criminal either.
Okay, well, well, it should be. It should be. And the fact is that this is not a mainstream politician. This is someone who, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu had to do a deal with the devil to keep him in his cabinet and keep his government stable. That's what's happening there.
Yeah, this may well be true, Peter. I know it's certainly not all Jews. Obviously, it's not. But certainly evidenced by just the sheer amount of, you know, testimonies and the videos.
It does happen. No one's denying that it happens. I think the point is that it is, as we've explained this evening, a very, very small number of people in Israel who are nutters who are doing this and shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, but it is a broad spectrum, though, Peter. I think somebody mentioned earlier.
I don't think it is a broad spectrum.
Children.
I don't think it is a broad spectrum. I mean, children...
No. What I mean by that, Peter, is somebody mentioned earlier that it was children doing this. Well, that's not the case at all. This is, yes, worryingly, there are a lot of children that do seem to do it, but they tend to be with their parents who are also doing it.
Okay.
But it goes all the way up to old people as well that are doing it as well. You know, and some of the stuff... I mean, literally, Peter, I've seen videos of not just spitting, I've seen videos of punching people.
Yeah. And it's totally unacceptable. And absolutely shouldn't happen. And Nat, who's in Tel Aviv, Mark, has just messaged me to say the ultra-Orthodox Jews are a massive pain in our bums, she says. So that's part of it as well. Listen, thanks for your call, Mark. Appreciate that. Let's go to Ash, who is... actually, just before we chat just for 1 second, breaking news in the Telegraph. Harry is going to hold his tongue to regain the King's trust. The Prince's push for reconciliation means no more wide-ranging interviews in royal life. He hopes to regain the trust of his father by no longer talking about private family matters in public. He's apparently committed to reconciliation and rebuilding relationships. The King is understood to be pleased his younger son is coming home, looking forward to spending more time with him and his family. However, it is being made clear that there will be no alteration to the Duke and Duchess's role and status as private individuals and non-working royals. Ash, Harry take a vow of silence? I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, and also it's about William. I don't think he's ever going to fix that bond. And also the security thing, there'll be some threat, and they're credible threat, and they'll go, all right, now we've got to pay for security. You know that's what's going to happen with it. Something will be manufactured, and so everyone's going to get annoyed. And yeah, on the show we're going to talk to a PR guru in crisis management, talking about, you know, if it could all mess up, it could backfire, Harry and Meghan return. But it's like checkmate, they've got nowhere else to go now. They're skint, because they had that court case and they got making it with that rubbish film, Cookie Queens or whatever. So it's interesting though, isn't it?
Can I read you some of her lines? I sent this to Samara. Actually,
someone's lines.
Samara Gill, yes, not Samara Gill's lines, but indeed, what's her name? Meghan's lines.
Allegedly.
Harry's first impression of Montecito. One of the first things my husband saw was those two palm trees. See how they're connected at the bottom? He goes, my love, it's us. On mindfulness, she said, I can't function today without being present. There we are.